On a rainy night in a quiet roadside diner, a lonely man steps inside, unaware that the next 90 seconds will change everything. When powerful drunk men attack a woman, he could stay silent or take action. He chooses to fight. But that woman is no ordinary stranger, and that night, he doesn't just save one life. This story of courage, sacrifice, and intertwined destinies will make you believe in miracles born from the darkest moments. Stay until the end. Hit like and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story has traveled. The rain came down in sheets that Thursday night, hammering the tin roof of Sal's diner like 1,000 angry fists. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed and flickered, casting everything in a sickly yellow glow that made the cracked vinyl booths look even more worn than they were. The coffee was burnt. The floor tiles were chipped. The whole place smelled like grease and desperation. Ethan Cole stood behind the grill, flipping burgers with the same mechanical precision he'd once used to field strip a rifle. 34 years old, with close-cropped dark hair going gray at the temples, and shoulders that still carried the weight of a uniform he hadn't worn in 6 years. His face was all hard angles and exhaustion, sharp jaw, tired eyes, the kind of look that came from too many sleepless nights and not enough reasons to smile. He didn't talk much. Never had, really. The other cook, a kid named Danny, who couldn't have been more than 19, had given up trying to make conversation weeks ago. Now they just worked in silence, the hiss and sizzle of the grill filling the space between them. "Order up," Ethan called, sliding 2 plates across the pass-through window. His voice was flat, empty of inflection. He wiped his hands on his apron, stained, fraying at the edges, and reached for the next ticket. Through the window, he could see maybe a dozen customers scattered throughout the diner. Truckers mostly. A couple of insomniacs nursing coffee. And in the corner booth, partially hidden by the coat rack, a woman sat alone. She was maybe 30, wearing a dark coat with the collar turned up despite the heat inside. Her auburn hair was pulled back in a ponytail that had started to come loose, strands falling around a face that would have been striking if it wasn't so clearly tense. She'd ordered soup an hour ago and barely touched it, just sat there staring at her phone like it held answers to questions she was afraid to ask. Ethan noticed her the way he noticed everything, a habit from the Marines that had never quite left him. Exits, entrances, who came in, who went out. The woman was anxious about something. Her leg bounced under the table. Every time the door opened, her head snapped up. Not his problem. He had enough of those. He cracked 4 eggs onto the griddle and watched them sizzle, thinking about the stack of bills on his kitchen counter. Past due notices from the electric company. A letter from Lily's school about an upcoming field trip that cost $40 they didn't have. The rent, due in 5 days, that he was $200 short on. The door swung open, letting in a blast of cold air and rain. 4 men stumbled through, loud and already drunk despite it being barely past midnight. They wore expensive suits that didn't quite fit right anymore. Too tight across the shoulders, too loose at the waist. The kind of men who'd been fit once, maybe played college football, then spent 20 years at desk jobs turning muscle to flab. "Jesus, what a shithole," one of them announced, too loud, his words slurring together. He was maybe 50, with thinning blonde hair and a red face that suggested a blood pressure problem in his near future. "But it's got a roof, that's something." His companions laughed, the forced, aggressive laughter of drunk men trying to prove they're having more fun than they actually are. They took up residence in the booth directly across from the woman, making enough noise for twice their number. Ethan flipped the eggs. Not his problem. "Hey!" The blonde one was waving at Rita, the overnight waitress. "Sweetheart, coffee, and keep it coming. We've had a hell of a night." Rita, 63, grandmother of 5, working the graveyard shift because her pension wasn't enough, shuffled over with the pot. "Coming right up, gentlemen." "Gentlemen," one of them repeated, like it was the funniest thing he'd ever heard. "You hear that, Marcus?" "We're gentlemen." The blonde one, Marcus, grinned. He had teeth too white to be natural. "Damn right we are. Gentlemen who just closed a deal that's going to make us so rich we'll never have to look at dumps like this again." More laughter. Rita poured their coffee with the practiced deficiency of someone who'd served 1,000,000 assholes and would probably serve 1,000,000 more. She didn't smile, didn't engage, just poured and moved on. That's when Marcus noticed the woman in the corner booth. "Well, well," he said, loud enough to carry across half the diner. "What do we have here?" Ethan's hand stilled on the spatula. Through the pass-through, he watched Marcus lean back in his booth, studying the woman with the kind of predatory interest that made something cold settle in Ethan's gut. "Lady all alone," Marcus continued, speaking to his friends but loud enough that everyone could hear. "On a night like this. That doesn't seem safe, does it, boys?" The woman kept her eyes on her phone, but her shoulders had gone rigid. Her hand tightened around her coffee cup. "Maybe we should go keep her company," one of the other men suggested. He was shorter, stockier, with dark hair slicked back and a diamond pinky ring that caught the fluorescent light. "Make sure she's okay." "Maybe we should mind our own business," Rita said sharply, refilling their cups without being asked. "How about some pie? We've got apple, cherry. We don't want pie, sweetheart." Marcus's voice had gone hard. "We want to be good Samaritans." "That a crime?" Before Rita could answer, Marcus was on his feet. Not quite steady, but steady enough. His three companions followed, spreading out like they'd done this before. Hunters. Pack animals. They crossed the diner with the swaggering confidence of men who'd never been told no, who'd never faced real consequences. Marcus slid into the booth across from the woman, uninvited. The other three boxed her in from the sides and the aisle. "Evening," Marcus said, his voice dripping with false courtesy. "Couldn't help but notice you're all alone. That's no good. No good at all." The woman finally looked up. Her face was pale, her green eyes wide but trying hard to stay level. "I'm fine, thank you." "She's fine," she says. Marcus looked at his friends, grinning. "You hear that? She's fine. But you don't look fine, honey. You look worried, upset even. What's wrong? Boyfriend dump you? Husband?" "Please leave me alone." Her voice was steady, but Ethan could hear the tremor underneath, fear trying to masquerade as firmness. "Leave you alone? We're just being friendly. Isn't that right, boys?" The stocky one with the pinky ring leaned in closer, his shoulder brushing hers. "Real friendly. You look like you could use some company, some protection even. This neighborhood, this time of night, not safe for a lady like you. I said leave me alone." Louder now, her voice carrying across the diner. Every head turned. The truckers watched but didn't move. The insomniacs looked away, suddenly very interested in their coffee. Ethan set down the spatula. "Easy now," Marcus said, his hand reaching across the table toward hers. "No need to be rude, we're just trying to—" "Don't touch me." She jerked her hand back, but there was nowhere to go. The booth was a trap, the men a wall of flesh and cologne and alcohol breath. "Feisty," the third man said, laughing. He was younger than the others, maybe 40, with a gym rat build going soft. "I like feisty." Marcus's hand shot out, grabbing her wrist. Not hard enough to bruise, but hard enough to hold, to demonstrate control. "Listen, you stuck-up little—" Ethan came around the counter. He didn't run, didn't shout, just walked, steady and purposeful, his work boots quiet on the linoleum. He'd covered half the distance before anyone noticed him. "Sir." His voice cut through the noise like a blade, flat, empty. The voice he'd used to give orders in Kandahar. "Let her go!" Marcus looked up, his face twisting in irritation. "Who the hell are you, the cook? Get back in your kitchen, buddy. This doesn't concern you." Ethan stopped 3 feet from the booth. Up close, he could see the sweat on Marcus's forehead, smell the bourbon on his breath. Could see the woman's chest rising and falling too fast, her free hand clutching her phone like a lifeline. "Let her go," he repeated. Same tone. No anger, no heat, just a statement of fact. The sky is blue, water is wet. You're going to let her go. Or what? The stocky one stood up, puffing out his chest. He had maybe 3 inches and 40 pounds on Ethan, most of it concentrated around his middle. "You gonna make us, dishwasher? You know who we are? You know who you're fucking with?" Ethan's eyes flicked to him, then back to Marcus. "I don't care who you are. You're drunk. You're harassing her. You're going to let go of her wrist and you're going to leave. Right now." Marcus laughed, a wet, ugly sound. "Jesus Christ, a hero. We got ourselves a hero, boys. Let me explain something to you, friend. We're lawyers, corporate lawyers. We can make your life very, very difficult. We can have this shithole shut down by Monday. We can—" Ethan moved. He'd learned in the Marines that speed beats strength 9 times out of 10. Surprise beats both. His hand shot out, clamping down on the pressure point where Marcus's thumb met his wrist. He squeezed, hard, and Marcus's fingers sprang open with a yelp of pain. The woman jerked her hand back, cradling it against her chest. "What the?" Marcus started to rise, fury flooding his face. Ethan's other hand came down on his shoulder, shoving him back into the booth with enough force to rattle the table. Coffee sloshed over the rim of cups. "Stay." The stocky one lunged. He was big, but slow, telegraphing the punch from a mile away. Ethan sidestepped, grabbed the man's extended arm, and used his own momentum to send him crashing into the next booth. He went down hard, taking a chair with him. The gym rat came next, trying to tackle Ethan around the waist. Ethan brought his knee up, caught him in the solar plexus, and the man crumpled, gasping for air. The fourth man, he'd been silent until now, older than the others with gray at his temples and wire-rimmed glasses, held up his hands. Okay, we're leaving, Marcus exploded from the booth with a roar, swinging wild. Ethan ducked under the haymaker, stepped inside his guard, and drove his elbow into Marcus's ribs. Not hard enough to break anything, just hard enough to end the fight. Marcus went down on one knee, clutching his side and wheezing. 90 seconds. That's all it had taken. Ethan stood over them, breathing steady, his hands at his sides. No adrenaline rush, no satisfaction. Just the hollow feeling that always came after violence, the knowledge that he'd done it again, crossed the line again, and there would be consequences. "Get out." His voice was quiet now, almost gentle. Somehow, that made it worse. "All of you, get out and don't come back." Marcus looked up at him, his face purple with rage and humiliation. You have no idea what you've just done. No idea. You're going to leave," Ethan interrupted. "Before I call the police and tell them you assaulted this woman. Before I testify in court about what I saw. You're drunk. You're disorderly. You put your hands on someone who told you to stop. That's assault. That's battery. You're lawyers. You know how this plays out." The older one with the glasses was already pulling Marcus to his feet. "Come on. He's right. We need to go. Now." "This isn't over," Marcus spat, but he was moving toward the door, his friends gathering around him. "You hear me? This isn't over. I'm going to bury you. I'm going to—" The door swung shut behind them, cutting off his threats. Through the window, Ethan watched them stumble into the rain, one of them slipping on the wet pavement. Their car, a black BMW, because of course it was, fishtailed out of the parking lot, spraying gravel. The diner was silent. Ethan turned to the woman. She was still pressed into the corner of the booth, her face pale, her hands shaking. "Are you okay?" She stared at him for a long moment, like she was seeing him for the first time. Then she nodded. Yes. Thank you. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't—" "You're okay," he repeated. It wasn't a question this time. "That's what matters. Do you need me to call someone, a ride?" No, I can—" She fumbled with her phone, nearly dropped it, caught it. Her hands were really shaking now, the adrenaline crash hitting her. "I just need a minute, please." Ethan nodded. He understood that. The need for space after violence, even violence you weren't the one doing. "Take your time." He walked back to the kitchen. Danny was staring at him, wide-eyed, the spatula hanging forgotten in his hand. Rita stood by the register, her face unreadable. "Holy shit," Danny breathed. Did you see?" "The eggs are burning," Ethan said, nodding toward the grill. Danny scrambled back to work, scraping blackened eggs into the trash. Ethan washed his hands. They weren't shaking, they never shook anymore, and reached for a new order ticket. His heart rate was already back to normal, 65 beats per minute, the same as always. Through the pass-through, he watched the woman gather her things with fumbling fingers. She left cash on the table, way too much for a bowl of soup, and hurried toward the door. She paused there, looked back at him, opened her mouth like she wanted to say something. Then she was gone, swallowed by the rain and the night. Ethan flipped another burger. Rita came into the kitchen 20 minutes later. She leaned against the counter, studying him with eyes that had seen too much of the world's ugliness. "That was either the bravest thing or the stupidest thing I've seen in 40 years of waitressing." "Probably both," Ethan said. "Those men, they weren't kidding. They will try to make trouble. Men like that, they don't like being humiliated." "I know," she sighed. "Why'd you do it?" Ethan didn't answer right away. He plated the burger, added fries, slid it through the window. She asked them to stop. They didn't. That's it? That's the whole reason? He shrugged. That's enough. Rita shook her head, but there was something like affection in her eyes. You're a good man, Ethan Cole. Too good for this world, maybe. I just hope it doesn't cost you too much. It already has, he thought, but didn't say. Instead, he just nodded and reached for the next ticket. The rest of the shift passed without incident. The rain kept falling, the truckers came and went, the insomniacs nursed their coffee until dawn started to gray the eastern sky. At 6 a.m., Ethan hung up his apron. His shift was over. Time to go home to Lily. Home was a 2-bedroom apartment in a complex that had been going downhill for 20 years and showed no signs of stopping. The stairwell smelled like cigarettes and mildew. The elevator had been broken since March. Ethan climbed to the 3rd floor, his knees protesting. An old injury from Fallujah that the VA kept promising to look at and never did. He unlocked the door quietly. The apartment was dark, lit only by the glow from the kitchen clock. 7:43 a.m. Lily would be waking up soon, demanding breakfast and help with her homework and 100 other things that made his chest feel too tight and too full all at once. Ethan crossed to her bedroom and eased the door open. There she was, sprawled across her bed in a tangle of blankets and stuffed animals. 8 years old, with his dark hair and her mother's delicate features. Her mouth was open slightly, one arm thrown over her head in complete abandon. She was the only perfect thing in his life, the only thing that made sense. He watched her breathe for a moment, in, out, steady and sure, then backed out of the room and closed the door. In the kitchen, he started coffee and surveyed the damage. Bills on the counter, stacked in order of urgency. Red envelopes on top, white ones below. The refrigerator held milk, eggs, half a loaf of bread, and condiments. He needed to go shopping, but that required money they didn't have. His phone buzzed, a text from Sal, the diner owner. Need to see you before your next shift. Important. Ethan stared at the message. His gut told him what it meant, but he didn't let himself think it. Not yet. He'd deal with it when he dealt with it. He made eggs and toast, 2 pieces for Lily, 1 for himself, and was just setting the table when he heard her door open. Small feet padding down the hallway. Then she appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes, her hair sticking up in 6 different directions. Daddy? Morning, sunshine. He smiled, and it felt almost real. Sleep okay? She yawned hugely and climbed into her chair. I had a dream about dinosaurs. They were nice dinosaurs, though. They let me ride them. That sounds pretty cool. It was. She took a bite of toast, chewed thoughtfully. Daddy, can we get a dog? They'd had this conversation before. Dogs are expensive, baby. Food, vet bills, all that stuff. But if we got a little dog, it wouldn't eat much. Little dogs eat plenty. Trust me. She wrinkled her nose. You always say that. Because it's always true. They ate in comfortable silence for a while. Outside, the rain had stopped, but the sky was still gray and heavy with the promise of more. Ethan watched his daughter eat, memorizing the moment. The way the morning light caught the curve of her cheek, the serious expression she got when she was thinking hard about something. Daddy? Her voice was small. Yeah? Are we poor? The question hit him like a punch to the gut. He set down his coffee carefully. Why would you ask that? She shrugged, not meeting his eyes. Sarah at school said we must be poor because I always wear the same jacket and I never have money for the vending machine. She said her mom said we probably can't afford better. Rage flared hot in Ethan's chest, not at Lily, at Sarah and Sarah's mother, and every other person who felt entitled to judge them. He pushed it down. Lily didn't need his anger. She needed his honesty. We don't have a lot of money, he said slowly. That's true, but we have enough. We have this apartment. We have food. We have each other. And that jacket is perfectly good. I checked it myself. But we don't have enough for a dog. No, not right now. She nodded, accepting this with the matter-of-fact wisdom of children who learn too young that wanting doesn't equal getting. That's okay. I like it being just us anyway. Something cracked in Ethan's chest. He reached across the table and squeezed her hand. Me too, sunshine. Me too. After he dropped Lily at school, she hugged him extra tight at the gate, like she could sense his worry. Ethan drove to Sal's diner. It was 9:30, between the breakfast and lunch rush. The parking lot was nearly empty. Inside, Sal was waiting in his office, a closet-sized room behind the kitchen that smelled like old grease and older cigarettes. Sal himself was 72, bald, except for a fringe of white hair, with a gut that spoke to a lifetime of sampling his own cooking. He'd hired Ethan 6 years ago, right after Ethan got out of the Marines, no questions asked. Now he couldn't look Ethan in the eye. "Sit down," Sal said, gesturing to the folding chair across from his desk. Ethan sat. "This about last night?" "Yeah." Sal pulled off his glasses, rubbed the bridge of his nose. "I got 3 calls this morning. 3. One from the men you roughed up, one from their law firm, one from their law firm's senior partner, who also happens to golf with the mayor. I didn't rough them up. I defended a customer they were assaulting." I know that. Rita told me everything. But here's the thing, Ethan. It doesn't matter what the truth is. What matters is what they can do." He pulled out a folder, opened it. Inside were printed emails, legal letterhead. "They're threatening to sue. Sue me, sue the diner, sue you personally. They're saying you attacked them unprovoked, that you're unstable, violent, a danger to customers." That's bullshit. Of course it's bullshit, but it's bullshit from a law firm that has 50 attorneys and unlimited money. I'm one guy with a diner that barely breaks even. I can't fight this. I can't afford to fight this. Ethan knew where this was going, had known since he'd seen the text, but hearing it out loud still felt like a knife between the ribs. "I'm sorry," Sal continued, and he sounded it. Genuinely sorry. "You're a good worker, best cook I've had in years, but I can't keep you on. They're threatening to sue unless I fire you, and if they sue, I lose everything, the diner, my retirement, all of it. So you're firing me." "I don't have a choice." Ethan stood. His legs felt distant, like they belonged to someone else. "Yeah, you do, but I get it." Ethan, it's fine. I'll clear out my locker." He walked out before Sal could say anything else. In the kitchen, Danny was prepping for lunch, chopping onions with mechanical efficiency. He looked up when Ethan entered, his face carefully neutral. "Heard," Danny said quietly. "I'm sorry, man. It's messed up." Ethan didn't respond. He went to his locker, pulled out his extra t-shirt, and the picture of Lily he kept taped inside the door. That was it. 6 years of work, reduced to a t-shirt and a photograph. He was halfway to his car when Rita caught up with him. She pressed something into his hand, a wad of cash, crumpled bills. "It's not much, 200, from the staff. We took up a collection." "I can't." "Yes, you can, and you will, because Lily needs you to." Her voice was fierce. "Don't you dare get proud now. You saved that woman. You did the right thing. And if the world punishes you for it, well, that's on the world, not you." Ethan looked down at the money in his hand. $200. It would cover rent, barely. But next month? The month after that? "Thank you," he managed. Rita squeezed his arm. "You're a good man. Don't forget that, okay? Whatever happens next, don't forget." He drove home in silence, the radio off, just the sound of traffic and his own breathing. The apartment felt different when he let himself in. Smaller, shabbier, like unemployment had already changed the physics of the place. He sat at the kitchen table and stared at the bills. Electric, $127, overdue. Water, $63. Internet, which Lily needed for school, $89. Rent, $950, due in 4 days. Credit card, maxed out at $1,847. Minimum payment, $63. Total immediate needs, roughly $1,300. Cash on hand, $200 from Rita, plus $84 in his checking account. He'd need to find work, fast, but jobs that paid enough, that offered enough hours, that would let him be home for Lily. Those didn't grow on trees. He'd already learned that the hard way. His phone rang. Unknown number, probably a spam call, but he answered anyway. You never knew. "Hello? Mr. Cole?" A woman's voice, professional, crisp. "Ethan Cole?" "Yeah, who's this?" "My name is Jennifer Park. I'm calling on behalf of Victoria Hale. She'd very much like to meet with you. Are you available this afternoon? Ethan frowned. Who? Victoria Hale, the woman you assisted last night at the diner. She'd like to thank you personally and discuss a potential opportunity. The woman from the booth. Auburn hair, green eyes, fear trying to hide behind firmness. I don't need thanks. I just did what anyone should have done. Nevertheless, Ms. Hale insists. Would 2 p.m. work? Her office downtown? I can send a car. No car, just give me the address. A pause. Of course, I'm texting it now. 2 p.m., Mr. Cole. Ms. Hale is looking forward to it. The call ended. A moment later, his phone buzzed with an address. Ethan looked it up. Hale Industries, 62nd floor of the Chrysler Financial Tower. He sat back in his chair staring at nothing. Victoria Hale. Hale Industries. He knew that name. Everyone did. One of the richest women in the country. Real estate, tech investments, a dozen other things. Forbes had done a profile on her last year. The youngest female billionaire in the state, self-made, ruthless in business, notoriously private in her personal life. That woman had been sitting alone in Sal's diner at midnight, being harassed by drunk lawyers, and now she wanted to meet with him. Ethan looked around his apartment, at the bills, the bare refrigerator, the water stain on the ceiling he kept meaning to fix but couldn't afford, at the picture of Lily on the counter, gap-toothed and grinning. He should say no. He didn't need charity, didn't want it, but then he thought about the rent due in 4 days. About Lily asking if they were poor, her small voice trying to sound like it didn't matter. At 1:45, he changed into his only dress shirt, wrinkled but clean, and headed downtown. The Chrysler Financial Tower was everything Ethan's apartment complex wasn't. Glass and steel, soaring 68 stories into the gray sky. The lobby had marble floors and a waterfall feature that probably cost more than Ethan made in a year. Security guards in actual suits, not rent-a-cop polyester. He gave his name at the desk. The guard checked a list, nodded, handed him a visitor's badge. 62nd floor, they're expecting you. The elevator was glass-walled, offering a view of the city as it climbed. Ethan watched the streets fall away, the people shrinking to dots, the cars to toys. Up here, everything looked neat, orderly, none of the mess visible. The doors opened on the 62nd floor. More marble, more glass. A reception desk with a woman who looked like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. Mr. Cole, right this way, please. She led him through a maze of hallways, modern art on the walls, conference rooms with floor-to-ceiling windows until they reached a corner office. She knocked once, opened the door. Mr. Cole to see you, Miss Hale. Thank you, Jennifer. That'll be all. The woman, Jennifer, the one who'd called, withdrew, closing the door behind her. Ethan stepped into the office. It was massive. A wall of windows offered a panoramic view of the city. The furniture was minimalist but clearly expensive. A glass desk, leather chairs, abstract sculptures that probably had meanings Ethan didn't understand. And behind the desk, standing with her back to him, looking out at the city, was Victoria Hale. She turned. In the diner, she'd been pale, frightened, small. Here, she was transformed. She wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Ethan's car. Her auburn hair was down now, falling in waves past her shoulders. And her green eyes, they weren't wide with fear anymore. They were sharp, assessing, intelligent. She was, Ethan realized with some discomfort, beautiful. Not in a flashy way, in a way that snuck up on you, got under your skin. Mr. Cole, she crossed the office, extending her hand. Thank you for coming. Her handshake was firm, professional. No trembling now. Ma'am? Please sit. She gestured to the chairs facing her desk. Ethan sat. She remained standing, studying him with an intensity that made him want to fidget. He didn't. Marines didn't fidget. I'll get right to the point, she said finally. Last night, you intervened on my behalf when you had no obligation to do so. You put yourself at risk. From what I understand, you've now lost your job because of it. Ethan stiffened. How do you know that? I make it my business to know things, Mr. Cole, especially when those things involve people who've helped me. She moved to her desk, opened a folder. Ethan Michael Cole, 34, former Marine, served 2 tours in Iraq, 1 in Afghanistan. Honorably discharged 6 years ago.
Single father to Lily Marie Cole, age 8. Currently, or I should say until this morning, employed as a line cook at Sal's Diner. No significant savings. Roughly $1,500 in debt, not including standard living expenses. Anger flickered in Ethan's chest. You had me investigated. I did my due diligence. I wanted to understand who you are before I made my offer. I don't want charity. Good, because I'm not offering any. She closed the folder, met his eyes. I'm offering you a job. Despite himself, Ethan felt a flicker of interest. Doing what? Head chef. I'm opening a new restaurant concept in 6 months. Farm to table, locally sourced, the whole philosophy. I need someone who understands food, who can build a menu, who can lead a kitchen, someone I can trust. You don't know me. I know you risked your livelihood to protect a stranger. That speaks to character. And character, Mr. Cole, is something I can't buy. She named a salary. It was triple what he'd been making at the diner. Ethan sat very still. With that money, he could pay off the debts, could get Lily into a better school, could maybe, finally, stop feeling like he was drowning. It was too good to be true. Why? He asked. You could hire anyone, a trained chef from a fancy culinary school, someone with credentials. Why me? Victoria was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer. Because last night, when those men had me cornered, when I was more frightened than I've been in years, you didn't hesitate. You didn't calculate the risk. You just acted. I need people like that in my life, Mr. Cole. People who do the right thing even when it costs them. I'm not a hero. I didn't say you were. I said you did the right thing. There's a difference. She pulled out a contract, slid it across the desk. Think about it. Take the weekend, but I need an answer by Monday. Ethan looked down at the contract. Official letterhead, dense legal language. His name spelled out in black and white. This isn't charity, Victoria repeated. This is business. I need a chef. You need a job. It's that simple. Simple. Nothing in Ethan's life had been simple since the day the doctor handed him a screaming newborn and said, Congratulations, it's a girl. I'm sorry about your wife. He stood. I'll think about it. That's all I ask. She walked him to the door. As he was leaving, she spoke again. Mr. Cole? Those men last night, they weren't random drunks looking for trouble. Ethan turned. What do you mean? But Victoria was already shaking her head. Never mind, just be careful and thank you, again, for everything. The door closed behind him. Ethan stood in the hallway for a long moment, the contract in his hand feeling heavier than it should. Then he headed for the elevator, his mind already spinning with questions he couldn't answer and choices he didn't know how to make. Ethan picked Lily up from school at 3:15, the contract still folded in his jacket pocket like a live grenade. She came running across the playground, backpack bouncing, her face lit up with something that looked suspiciously like mischief. Daddy! Guess what? He caught her in a hug, breathed in the smell of her shampoo and playground dirt. What? Mrs. Patterson said my story about the dinosaurs was the best in class. She's going to put it on the bulletin board. That's great, Sunshine. I'm proud of you. Can we get ice cream to celebrate? Ethan thought about the $84 in his checking account, about the bills on the counter, about the contract in his pocket, offering salvation or something that just looked like it. Sure, why not? They went to Rosie's, the ice cream place 2 blocks from the apartment. Lily got chocolate chip cookie dough, her favorite, and Ethan got black coffee because it was cheaper and he didn't really want ice cream anyway. They sat at one of the outdoor tables, Lily swinging her legs and talking a mile a minute about her day while Ethan tried to focus and kept failing. Daddy, you're not listening. He blinked. Sorry, baby. What'd you say? She studied him with those 2 old eyes. Are you worried about something? Just thinking about work stuff. But you don't have work anymore. You said you got fired. Right. He told her that morning, keeping it simple. Sometimes grown-ups lose their jobs, but we'll figure it out. She'd accepted it the way she accepted everything, with a nod and a question about what was for dinner. I might have a new job, he said carefully. Someone offered me one today. Her face lit up. Really? That's good, right? Maybe. I don't know yet. Why don't you know? Is it a bad job? No, it's...
It's actually a really good job. Better than the diner, better pay, better everything. Lily licked her ice cream, waiting.
When Ethan didn't continue, she prompted, "So what's wrong with it? How did you explain to an 8-year-old that charity felt like drowning? That accepting help from a billionaire you'd met once felt wrong somehow, like cheating? That he didn't trust good things because good things usually came with catches?" "Nothing's wrong with it," he said finally. "I just need to think about it." "You think too much," Lily announced with the absolute certainty of childhood. "Mrs. Patterson says sometimes you just have to jump and see where you land." "Mrs. Patterson sounds like she doesn't have a mortgage." "What's a mortgage?" "Never mind." He reached across and wiped chocolate from her chin. "Finish your ice cream. We need to get home for homework." That night, after Lily was asleep, Ethan sat at the kitchen table and actually read the contract, all 23 pages of it. The legal language was dense, deliberately complicated, but the basics were clear enough. Salary, benefits, health insurance. Health insurance, Jesus. They hadn't had that since he left the Marines. Start date in 6 months after the restaurant construction was completed. Signing bonus of $10,000, paid immediately upon acceptance. $10,000. He could pay off every bill on the counter, could put money in savings, could buy Lily new clothes, a real winter coat instead of the hand-me-down she'd been wearing for 2 years, could stop lying awake at 3 a.m., doing mental math, trying to figure out how to stretch $90 across 2 weeks of groceries. He pulled out his phone, stared at Victoria Hale's business card, the one Jennifer had pressed into his hand as he left. The number was printed in raised lettering, expensive stock. He could call right now, accept, be done with it. His thumb hovered over the screen. Then he set the phone down and went to bed, the contract still unsigned on the table. Friday dragged. Ethan dropped Lily at school, came home, and spent 4 hours applying for jobs online. Line cook positions, prep cook, dishwasher, anything that would pay. Most wanted him to start immediately. None of them paid more than minimum wage. He filled out applications until his eyes burned and his references, Sal, Rita, the manager from the Applebee's he'd worked at 7 years ago, started to blur together. At noon, his phone rang. Unknown number again. "Mr. Cole? This is Marcus Westbrook." The name took a second to register. Then Ethan placed it, the blonde lawyer from the diner, the one who'd grabbed Victoria's wrist. "What do you want?" "Just to talk, man to man." Westbrook's voice was smooth, friendly, like they were old buddies. "I think we got off on the wrong foot the other night. I was drunk, you were protective of your customer. I get it. Water under the bridge." Ethan said nothing. "The thing is," Westbrook continued, "my firm is prepared to let this whole unfortunate incident go. No lawsuit, no trouble for you or Sal's diner. But we need something from you first." "What?" "A statement. Just a simple affidavit saying that the woman, Victoria Hale, was actually the aggressor that night. That she was drunk, belligerent, and you had to restrain her. That we were trying to help, and she attacked us." Ethan's grip tightened on the phone. "That's a lie." "It's a narrative. And narratives are flexible, Mr. Cole. Sign the affidavit, and we make all your problems go away. We might even get you your job back at the diner. Maybe find you something better. My firm has connections. You want me to lie under oath to protect you from a harassment claim. I want you to be smart, to think about your daughter, Lily, right? Cute kid. 3rd grade at Roosevelt Elementary. Must be hard raising a child alone on a line cook's salary. Or, well, no salary at all now." The threat was there, wrapped in pleasantries. Ethan's vision went red at the edges. "You stay away from my daughter." "No one's threatening anyone. I'm just pointing out facts. You're unemployed, you have bills, and we're offering you a way out. All you have to do is sign a piece of paper." "Go to hell." "Mr. Cole?" Ethan hung up. His hands were shaking now, not from fear, from rage. He set the phone down carefully, very carefully, before he could throw it across the room. They'd investigated him. They knew where Lily went to school. They knew he was broke, and they wanted him to betray Victoria Hale, to lie for them, to let them bury whatever they'd actually been doing that night. His phone rang again. Same number. He didn't answer. It went to voicemail. Rang again. Voicemail. Again. On the 4th call, Ethan answered. "I said, Think about it over the weekend. Westbrook's voice had lost its friendly veneer. Now it was just cold. We need an answer by Monday. Sign the affidavit, or we go forward with the lawsuit. Against you, against the diner, against anyone who was there that night. We'll bury you in legal fees. We'll make sure you never work in this city again. Your choice. The line went dead. Ethan sat in the silent apartment, his heart pounding. 2 offers, 2 deadlines. Both due Monday. One from a woman offering him a future. One from men threatening to destroy him. He thought about Lily, asked if they were poor, about the bills on the counter, about the right thing and what it cost. Then he picked up his phone and called Victoria Hale's office. Jennifer answered. Hale Industries, Ms. Hale's office. This is Ethan Cole. I need to speak with her. Now. I'm sorry, Mr. Cole, but Ms. Hale is in meetings all afternoon. I can schedule... Tell her Marcus Westbrook just called me. Tell her he wants me to sign a false statement saying she attacked him. Tell her I need to talk to her today, or I'm walking away from all of this. A pause. Hold, please. 30 seconds of elevator music. Then Victoria's voice, sharp and clear. Mr. Cole, what did Westbrook say to you? Ethan told her. Everything. The affidavit, the threats, the mention of Lily's school. Victoria listened without interrupting, and when he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. I'm sorry, she said finally. I hoped they wouldn't escalate this far. I was wrong. What the hell is going on? Who are these people? Can you come to my office now? This isn't a conversation for the phone. Ethan looked at the clock. 2:40. He had to pick up Lily in 35 minutes. I have to get my daughter from school. Bring her. We have a lounge on the executive floor. Television, games, snacks. She'll be comfortable while we talk. Please, Mr. Cole. You deserve the truth. 20 minutes later, Ethan was back in the Chrysler Financial Tower, Lily's hand in his. She stared around the lobby with wide eyes. Whoa, she breathed. Daddy, this place is fancy. Yeah, it is. Remember what I said, best behavior. I know. Don't touch anything. Don't run. Use my inside voice. Jennifer met them at the elevator, all professional warmth. You must be Lily. I've heard so much about you. Lily looked up at Ethan, confused. He shrugged. This is Miss Park. She works for Miss Hale. Hi, Lily said shyly. Hi yourself. How do you feel about hot chocolate and cartoons? Lily's face lit up. Really? Really. Right this way. The executive lounge was everything Jennifer had promised. A comfortable room with plush couches, a wall-mounted television, and a kitchenette stocked with snacks. Jennifer got Lily settled with hot chocolate and some animated movie about talking animals, then led Ethan back to Victoria's office. Victoria was standing at the window again, but this time she looked tired. The armor of her professional persona had cracks in it. When she turned, Ethan saw shadows under her eyes. Thank you for coming, she said, and for bringing Lily. I meant what I said. I owe you the truth. So tell me. She gestured to the chairs. They both sat. Victoria folded her hands in her lap, and for a moment she looked lost, young, despite the expensive suit and the office that screamed power. Those men the other night, she began, weren't random drunks. They work for Hartman and Cross, one of the largest corporate law firms in the state. They also happen to represent Hale Industries. Or they did, until 3 weeks ago. What happened 3 weeks ago? I fired them. I'd been going through our financial records. I do it quarterly, personally, because I've learned not to trust anyone else with my company's books. And I found discrepancies. Money moving in ways it shouldn't. Accounts that didn't make sense. When I dug deeper, I found evidence of fraud. Systematic, deliberate fraud. They'd been skimming for years, hiding it in shell corporations and offshore accounts, millions of dollars. Ethan whistled low. And they knew you found out. I confronted them, told them I was going to the authorities. They laughed at me, said I had no proof, that anything I thought I'd found could be explained away, that if I went public with accusations, they'd bury me in countersuits, defamation, breach of contract, you name it. So you fired them anyway? I did. And I started building a case, quietly. I hired a forensic accountant, a private investigator. I started documenting everything. But they knew what I was doing. They started pushing back, threatening me, harassing me. She looked away. That night at the diner, I'd been at a meeting with one of my investigators. I was driving home and realized I was being followed. So I pulled off the highway, found the first public place I could. Figured they wouldn't try anything with witnesses around. But they did anyway. They were drunk, angry. I don't think they'd planned to confront me there. I think they saw my car an opportunity and took it. If you hadn't been there... She stopped, swallowed hard. I don't know what would have happened. Ethan thought about that night, the way Marcus had grabbed her wrist, the look in his eyes, entitled and vicious. They would have hurt you. Yes, I think they would have. And now they want me to say you attacked them, to discredit you before you can expose them. That's their play. If they can make me look unstable, aggressive, unreliable, it undermines my credibility, makes it easier to dismiss my accusations as the rantings of an unhinged woman. Ethan leaned back in his chair, processing. Why me? Why offer me a job? You could have just paid me off, kept me quiet. Victoria met his eyes. Because paying you off would have been what they expected. It would have made you complicit. And because... She hesitated, then continued, her voice softer. Because I've spent 10 years building this company, fighting every step of the way, fighting investors who didn't take me seriously because I was young and female, fighting competitors who tried to sabotage me, fighting my own doubts. And I've learned that the only people worth having in your corner are the ones who do the right thing even when it's hard. You did that, without knowing who I was, without expecting anything in return. That's worth more than any resume. It's still charity. It's strategy. I need people I can trust, Mr. Cole, and trust isn't something I can buy. She pulled out another folder, slid it across the desk. This is everything I have so far. The forensic reports, the documented harassment, statements from other employees who witnessed Hartman and Cross's behavior. It's not enough yet, but it will be. Ethan opened the folder. Pages and pages of financial documents, emails, photographs. It was dense, complicated, but the pattern was there if you knew how to look. Money disappearing, threats in corporate language, a systematic conspiracy. If I sign their affidavit, he said slowly, I help them get away with this. Yes. And if I don't? They'll sue you. They'll make your life hell. They have resources you can't imagine. I can offer you legal support, but I can't guarantee we'll win. Not quickly. Not cleanly. But it's the right thing. Victoria smiled, and it was sad and genuine at the same time. Yes, it's the right thing, which is a terrible reason to do anything, because the right thing usually costs more than anyone wants to pay. Ethan thought about Lily in the lounge, drinking hot chocolate, oblivious to any of this, about the bills on his counter, about Rita saying you're a good man, don't forget that, about his father, dead 15 years now, who'd always said character is what you do when no one's watching and everyone would understand if you didn't. I won't sign their affidavit, he said. Victoria exhaled, and some of the tension left her shoulders. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. I still haven't decided about your job offer. Why not? Because I don't like feeling bought, even if the price is fair. Then don't think of it as being bought. Think of it as... She paused, searching for words. Think of it as a partnership. You need a job. I need a chef I can trust. We both need allies against people who think rules don't apply to them. It's not charity, Mr. Cole. It's mutual survival. Ethan wanted to argue, wanted to stand on principle, to say he'd find his own way without her help. But principle didn't pay for Lily's field trips, didn't keep the lights on. I need time, he said. Until Monday, like you said. That's fair. But Mr. Cole, whatever you decide about the job, don't sign that affidavit. Please, not for me, for yourself. Because once you put your name on a lie, it owns you forever. He left the office, collected Lily from the lounge. She was outraged at being pulled away from her movie, and drove home through rush hour traffic. Lily chattered about the hot chocolate, about the television that was bigger than their whole living room, about how nice Ms. Park was. Is that lady your new boss? She asked. Maybe. I haven't decided yet. She seems nice, and she has really good snacks. Ethan laughed despite himself. That's your criteria? Good snacks? Snacks are important, Daddy. That night after dinner, Spaghetti with jarred sauce, the cheapest meal he could make stretch. Ethan's phone rang again. Not Westbrook this time. Sal. Ethan, you got a minute? Yeah, what's up? Sal sighed, and he sounded old, older than 72. I got another call from Hartman and Cross today. They're pushing hard, threatening to sue not just the diner but me personally. They want me to testify that you were unstable, that I'd had complaints about your temper, that I'd been planning to fire you anyway. That's not true. I know it's not true. You know it's not true. But Ethan, I'm 72 years old. I don't have the energy for this fight. I don't have the money. My lawyer looked at what they're threatening, and he says if they go through with it, I could lose everything. Ethan's chest tightened. What are you saying? I'm saying I can't back you up. I'm sorry. I know what you did was right. I know those men are scum. But I can't lose my diner. It's all I have. So you're going to lie for them. I'm going to stay out of it. I'm going to say I didn't see what happened, that I was in the back. That's not lying. That's just not telling the whole truth. It's the same thing. Maybe. Sal's voice cracked. But I'm a coward, Ethan. I'm an old man and a coward, and I'm choosing my survival over your vindication. I'm sorry, I really am. The line went dead. Ethan sat there, the phone loose in his hand. Rita he could maybe count on. She'd seen everything. She wouldn't back down. But Sal? Sal was the owner, the credible witness, the one whose testimony would matter most. Without him, it was just Ethan's word against 4 lawyers. He looked at the contract on the table, at the bills, at the photograph of Lily, gap-toothed and grinning, believing her father could fix anything. The weekend crawled by. Saturday. Ethan took Lily to the park, pushed her on the swings, and tried not to think about Monday. Sunday, they went to the library, free entertainment, and Lily checked out 6 books about dinosaurs while Ethan sat in the quiet and felt the weight of impossible choices crushing his chest. Sunday night, after Lily was asleep, he called his sister. Melissa lived 3 states away with a husband and 2 kids, and a life that had turned out exactly the way it was supposed to. They talked maybe once a month, awkward conversations where she asked if he needed help and he said no, and they both knew he was lying. Ethan? She sounded surprised. Everything okay? Yeah, fine. Just, can I ask you something? Of course. If someone offered you something you needed, but taking it felt wrong somehow, what would you do? Melissa was quiet for a moment. Is this about money? Because Mark and I can... It's not about money. Well, it is, but not from you. It's complicated. Does Lily have everything she needs? For now. Then maybe the question isn't whether it feels wrong. Maybe it's whether saying no helps anyone. Pride is expensive, Ethan. Trust me. I spent 10 years being too proud to ask for help, and all it got me was an ulcer and a maxed-out credit card. I'm not you. No, you're worse. You're a Marine. You think suffering is a virtue. She softened her tone. Look, I don't know what you're dealing with, but I know you. You'll do the right thing even if it kills you. Just make sure the right thing isn't martyrdom disguised as principles. After they hung up, Ethan sat in the dark kitchen and thought about that. Martyrdom disguised as principles. Was that what he was doing? Choosing pride over Lily's welfare? His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Last chance, Cole. Sign the affidavit by 9 a.m. Monday or we file. Your daughter's future is in your hands. Another text, a minute later. A photo. Lily on the playground at school, taken from a distance. Someone had been there, watching her. Ethan's vision went white. He was on his feet, the chair clattering backward, his hands curled into fists. They'd photographed his daughter. They'd gone to her school and photographed her. He called Victoria Hale. Didn't care that it was 10 p.m. on a Sunday. Didn't care about anything except the rage burning through his veins. She answered on the second ring. Mister? Cole? They sent me a picture of Lily at school. They're threatening her. What? Victoria's voice went sharp. When? Just now. A text. He forced himself to breathe, to think. I need you to tell me the truth. If I don't sign this thing, if I fight back, can you protect her? Can you actually keep my daughter safe from these people? Yes. No hesitation.
I have security resources.
Private investigators, bodyguards, lawyers who specialize in restraining orders and harassment cases. If they've crossed the line into threatening a child, that changes everything. We can take this to the police, get protective measures in place. And if that's not enough, then I will personally ensure that Lily is safe, whatever it takes. You have my word, Mr. Cole. Your word? My word, which is worth exactly as much as you're willing to believe it is. Ethan closed his eyes. Saw Lily on those swings yesterday, laughing, her whole life ahead of her. Saw the bills on the counter. Saw Marcus Westbrook's smug face, entitled and vicious. Saw himself in the mirror 6 years ago, fresh out of the Marines, holding a newborn and promising her dead mother that he'd keep her safe, that he'd be enough. He'd broken a lot of promises in his life, but never that one. I'm not signing their affidavit, he said, and I'm taking your job, on one condition. Name it. You put security on Lily, starting tomorrow. Someone watching her school, someone I can call if anything feels wrong. Non-negotiable. Done. I'll have someone there first thing in the morning. You'll have their contact information by midnight. Okay. He exhaled, felt something settle in his chest. Not peace. He hadn't felt peace in years, but certainty. Direction. Okay, I'll come by your office tomorrow. Sign the contract. Thank you, Mr. Cole. Don't. We both know I'm doing this because I'm out of options. You're doing it because they threatened your child and you refuse to let them win. That's not desperation. That's courage. Feels the same from here. He hung up, sat back down at the table, pulled out a pen, and wrote across the top of Westbrook's unsigned affidavit. Go to hell. Took a photo of it, sent it to the unknown number. Then he opened Victoria's contract and signed on every flagged line, his signature messy but final. At 11:47, his phone buzzed, a text from Jennifer Park with a name, a photo, and a phone number. Anthony Martinez, former Secret Service, will be at Roosevelt Elementary from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. daily. Any concerns, call immediately. At 11:59, another text. Marcus Westbrook. You've made a serious mistake, Cole. See you in court. Ethan looked at the message, at the contract, signed and binding, at the photograph of Lily on his counter, gap-toothed and grinning and trusting him to keep her safe in a world that didn't care about safe. He'd made his choice. Right or wrong, it was made. Now, he just had to live with it. Monday morning came too fast and too slow at the same time. Ethan woke at 5:30 out of habit, his body still calibrated to the diner's opening shift, even though he didn't work there anymore. The apartment was dark and quiet. Through Lily's crack a door, he could hear her breathing, soft and even. He made coffee and stood at the kitchen window, watching the sun come up gray and reluctant over the rooftops. His phone sat on the counter, silent for now. The signed contract was in a folder by the door, ready to deliver. Anthony Martinez's contact information was saved in his phone under Security Lily. Everything was arranged, decided, set in motion. So why did he feel like he'd just sold something he couldn't get back? At 7:45, he walked Lily to school. She was chattering about a science project on volcanoes, something about baking soda and vinegar, but Ethan was scanning the street, looking for unfamiliar cars, watching faces, his old combat instincts kicking into overdrive. Daddy, are you even listening? Volcanoes, baking soda, I'm listening. You're doing that thing again, where your eyes go all weird and you look at everything like it's going to explode. He forced himself to focus on her. Sorry, sunshine. Just tired. You're always tired. She said it matter-of-factly, without accusation, which somehow made it worse. They reached the school gates. Ethan knelt down, eye level with her. Hey, I need you to do something for me, okay? Okay. If anyone you don't know tries to talk to you or take your picture or anything that feels weird, you tell a teacher right away, and you call me. Deal? Lily's face scrunched up. Why would someone take my picture? They probably won't. I'm just being careful. Is this about your new job? Smart kid? Too smart sometimes. Kind of. Just promise me, okay? I promise. She hugged him tight, her backpack digging into his chest. Love you, Daddy. Love you too, sunshine. He watched her run across the playground, her ponytail bouncing. She joined a group of girls by the jungle gym, and just like that, she was absorbed into the world of childhood, where the biggest problems were spelling tests and who got to be the line leader. Ethan straightened and scanned the perimeter. There, parked across the street in a gray sedan, a man in his 40s, athletic build, close-cropped hair, watching the school with professional attention. He caught Ethan's eye and nodded once. Anthony Martinez, former Secret Service. Victoria had moved fast. Ethan crossed the street. Martinez rolled down the window. "Mr. Cole." "You don't have to call me that. Ethan's fine." "Ethan, I'll be here every day, 7 to 4, until Miss Hale tells me otherwise. Your daughter goes nowhere without me knowing about it. Anyone approaches her, I intervene. Anyone takes photos, I get their information and report it." "You have my number if you need anything." "Yeah, I do." Ethan studied him. Martinez had the look, competent, alert, someone who'd seen bad things and learned how to prevent them. "You worked for Hale long?" 3 years. She's good people, demanding but fair, and she doesn't ask me to babysit unless the threat's real." "It's real." "Then I'm here. Your kid's safe. That's my job." Ethan nodded, something easing in his chest. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. Haven't done anything but drink coffee and watch an elementary school." At 9 a.m., Ethan was back in Victoria's office, the signed contract on her desk. She reviewed it page by page, her expression professional, then looked up. "Welcome aboard, Mr. Cole. The signing bonus will be in your account by end of business today. Jennifer will set you up with HR for the rest. Benefits, tax forms, all the bureaucratic nonsense. When do I start? Officially, 6 months, when the restaurant opens. But I'd like you to start consulting now. Menu development, kitchen design, vendor relationships. You'll be paid hourly for that work on top of the bonus. Is that acceptable?" It was more than acceptable. It was a lifeline. "Yeah, that works." Victoria stood, extended her hand. "I know this wasn't an easy decision. I want you to know I don't take your trust lightly." Ethan shook her hand. Her grip was firm, her eyes steady. "Just keep Lily safe. That's all I care about." "I will." "And Ethan? They're going to come at you hard now. Westbrook and his firm. They'll file the lawsuit, probably today. They'll try to intimidate you, wear you down. Don't engage with them. Any communication goes through my legal team. Understood?" "Understood." "Good. Jennifer will introduce you to David Chen. He's our head counsel. Best lawyer I know. He'll handle everything." She was right about the timing. At 2:30 that afternoon, while Ethan was filling out tax forms in a conference room that had a better view than his entire apartment, Jennifer knocked on the door. "Mr. Cole? There's a process server in the lobby. He has papers for you." Ethan's stomach dropped. "Already?" "They don't waste time." She handed him a business card. "This is David Chen's direct line. Call him as soon as you've been served. Don't sign anything. Don't say anything to the server except to confirm your identity." The process server was a kid, maybe 22, who looked apologetic as he handed over the thick envelope. "Ethan Cole?" "Yeah." "You've been served. Have a good day, sir." Ethan took the envelope back to the conference room and opened it. The lawsuit was 37 pages long, dense with legal language, but the core was clear. Marcus Westbrook, Bradley Fine, Thomas Chen, and Gerald Hartman were suing him for assault, battery, emotional distress, and defamation. They were asking for $250,000 in damages, $250,000, for stopping them from hurting Victoria. He called David Chen. "Mr. Cole, I've been expecting this. Can you send me a photo of the complaint?" Ethan took pictures of all 37 pages and texted them over. 2 minutes later, Chen called back. "It's garbage, completely frivolous. They're hoping to scare you into settling or signing that affidavit. We're going to file a motion to dismiss, and we're going to countersue for harassment and abuse of process. But I need you to do something for me." "What?" "Write down everything you remember from that night, every detail. What they said, how they said it, where everyone was standing. The more specific, the better. I need it by tomorrow morning." "I can do that." "Good. And Mr. Cole, don't worry about the money. Even if this goes to trial, which it won't, you're covered. Ms. Hale made that very clear." After the call ended, Ethan sat in the conference room and stared at the lawsuit. $250,000. The number was so absurd it almost didn't feel real. He'd never had $250,000. He'd never had $25,000. The idea that he could somehow owe that much for doing the right thing made his head spin. His phone buzzed. A text from Rita. Heard about the lawsuit. Those bastards. You need anything? He typed back, just your testimony if it goes to trial. You still willing? Hell yes, they want to fight. We'll give them one. At least he had one ally at the diner. Sal might have bailed, but Rita was solid. That night, Ethan picked up Lily from school. Martinez gave him a thumbs up from the sedan as they left and took her home. Over dinner, she asked about his day, and he kept it vague. Paperwork, boring adult stuff. She accepted this and launched into a story about her friend Emma, who'd gotten in trouble for talking during quiet time. After she was asleep, Ethan sat at the kitchen table and wrote everything from that night. The rain, the fluorescent lights, the way Marcus had grabbed Victoria's wrist, the smell of bourbon, the slur in his words, the look in his eyes, the way the stocky one had crowded Victoria from the side, cutting off her escape. Every detail, no matter how small. He wrote for 3 hours, filling 6 pages front and back, and when he was done, his hand was cramping and his eyes were burning, but the memory was locked down, preserved. He sent photos of the pages to David Chen at 11 p.m., and then collapsed into bed. The next 2 weeks were a blur of legal motions and consultation meetings. David Chen filed the motion to dismiss along with a blistering countersuit alleging harassment, witness intimidation, and conspiracy to commit fraud. Hartman and Cross responded with their own motions, each one more aggressive than the last. Depositions were scheduled. Discovery demands were filed. The machinery of litigation ground forward slow and expensive. Ethan spent his days working with Victoria's team on the restaurant. They were converting an old warehouse in the Arts District into something she called farm-to-table elevated comfort food, which, as far as Ethan could tell, meant fancy versions of regular food at 3 times the price. But he didn't argue. He designed a menu, sourced vendors, sketched out kitchen layouts. The work was good, kept his hands busy, his mind occupied. And every day Martinez sat outside Lily's school in his gray sedan, a silent guardian. Lily had noticed him by the second week. "Daddy, why is that man always there?" "He's just doing his job." "What job?" "Security, for the neighborhood." She'd accepted this with a shrug, the way kids accepted anything that didn't directly affect their world. 3 weeks after Ethan signed the contract, Victoria invited him to lunch. Not in her office, at a small French place downtown, the kind with white tablecloths and wine lists that looked like novels. Ethan showed up in his least wrinkled button-down and felt immediately underdressed. Victoria was already seated, wearing a navy dress that probably cost more than his car. She smiled when she saw him. "Thank you for coming. I know this isn't your usual scene." "That obvious? You look like you're expecting someone to quiz you on which fork to use." "I know which fork to use. I was in the Marines. We had etiquette training." He sat down, picked up the menu. Everything was in French. "I just don't usually eat anywhere that needs 3 forks." She laughed, and it was genuine the first time he'd heard her laugh. "Order whatever you want. It's on me. Consider it a working lunch." They ordered. Ethan got something that turned out to be chicken with a sauce he couldn't pronounce, and for a while they talked business. The restaurant timeline, the vendor contracts, the staffing plan, but as the meal went on, the conversation drifted. "Can I ask you something personal?" Victoria said, setting down her wine glass. "You can ask. Can't promise I'll answer." "Lily's mother. What happened to her?" Ethan set down his fork. He should have expected this, but it still hit like a sucker punch. "She died 8 years ago. Complications during delivery. They had to choose between her and the baby. She'd made it clear in her birth plan, if it came down to it, save the baby. So they did." "I'm sorry." "Yeah, me too." He took a drink of water, wishing it was something stronger. "We'd only been married 6 months. Met during my last deployment. She was a nurse at the base hospital in Germany. Fell hard, fast. Got married 3 weeks after I mustered out. Found out she was pregnant 2 months later. We were still figuring out how to be married when suddenly we were going to be parents." "That's a lot of change very fast." Understatement. "And then she was gone, and I had this tiny screaming thing that needed me every second of every day, and I had no idea what I was doing. Still don't, half the time." Victoria was quiet for a moment. "You're doing better than you think. Lily seems happy, well-adjusted." "She deserves better than what I can give her."
She has a father who loves her enough to take on a billionaire's enemies. That's not nothing. Ethan looked at her across the table. In the soft restaurant lighting, she looked different than she did in her office. Younger, more vulnerable. Why are you really doing this? The job? The legal support? All of it. It's more than just needing a chef you can trust. Victoria turned her wine glass in her hands, watching the light catch in the liquid. Can I tell you something I haven't told anyone else? Not even my lawyers. Okay? That night at the diner, when those men cornered me. She took a breath. I was 10 weeks pregnant. The words hung in the air between them. Ethan felt his chest tighten. I hadn't told anyone yet, Victoria continued, her voice steady but quiet. I was waiting until the first trimester was over. Safer that way. But I was pregnant, and I was terrified, and when Marcus grabbed my wrist, all I could think was if this escalates, if they hurt me, I could lose the baby. Jesus. I was alone in that booth, and I knew they weren't going to stop. They were drunk and angry, and they wanted to punish me for firing them, for threatening to expose them. And if you hadn't stepped in, her voice cracked slightly, I could have lost everything that night, not just my safety, my child. Ethan felt something cold settle in his gut. Is the baby? I'm still pregnant, 17 weeks now. I had an ultrasound the day after the incident. Everything was fine, but it could have gone very differently. She met his eyes. So when I offered you that job, it wasn't charity. It wasn't even just about trust. It was about the fact that you saved my son's life, probably without even knowing it. And I don't know how to repay that except to make sure you and Lily are taken care of. Ethan sat back in his chair, processing. The woman he'd defended hadn't just been alone and scared. She'd been pregnant, protecting not just herself but an unborn child. The stakes had been even higher than he'd realized. Does anyone else know? He asked. About the pregnancy. My doctor, Jennifer, and now you. I'll have to go public with it eventually. Can't hide it forever. But I'm waiting until after we deal with Hartman and Cross. If they know I'm pregnant, they'll use it. Claim I'm emotionally unstable, that my accusations are hormone-driven paranoia. It's the oldest playbook in the book. That's sexist? Offensive? Par for the course? She smiled grimly. Welcome to being a woman in business. Every emotion is a symptom. Every decision is suspect. I learned a long time ago to keep my cards close. Who's the father, if you don't mind me asking? I do mind, actually, but I'll tell you anyway because you've earned honesty. She took a sip of wine. There is no father, not in the traditional sense. I used a donor, anonymous, from a clinic. I'm 32 years old, I run a multi-billion-dollar company, and I have exactly zero interest in marriage or romantic partnership. But I've always wanted children, so I made it happen on my own terms. Ethan found himself respecting that. The sheer nerve of it, the refusal to wait for life to look the way other people expected. Brave. Or selfish, depending on who you ask. My board thinks I'm insane. Having a baby as a single woman while running a company? They're already circling, waiting for me to fail, to prove that women can't have it all. But I'm going to do it anyway, because I refuse to let other people's limitations become mine. The waiter brought dessert, something chocolate and elaborate. They ate in companionable silence for a moment. Can I ask you something now? Victoria said. Fair's fair. Why the Marines? What made you enlist? Ethan thought about how to answer that. My dad was Navy, died when I was 16, heart attack. We didn't have much, and after he was gone, we had even less. My mom worked 2 jobs trying to keep us afloat. I joined up at 18, partly for the steady paycheck, partly because I didn't know what else to do. Figured the structure would be good for me. Turns out I was right. The Corps gave me purpose, direction, something bigger than myself to believe in. Do you miss it? Every day. And not at all. He set down his fork. I miss the clarity. The mission. You know who the enemy is, what you're supposed to do, how to measure success. Real life isn't like that. Real life is just a bunch of gray areas and impossible choices. Like whether to sign a false affidavit to protect your daughter. Yeah, like that. Victoria reached across the table, put her hand over his. It was a simple gesture, human contact, nothing more. But Ethan felt it anyway. The warmth, the connection,
the acknowledgement that they were in this together now. You made the right choice, she said. I made the only choice I could live with. Doesn't mean it was right. It was right because you can look Lily in the eye and tell her the truth about what you did. That matters more than you think. They finished dessert, and Victoria paid the bill. She waved off his attempt to contribute, and they walked out into the afternoon sun. The city was loud and busy around them, cars honking, people shouting into phones, construction hammering somewhere close by. I should get back, Victoria said. Conference call in 20 minutes. But Ethan, thank you. For lunch, for the honesty. It's rare that I get to just talk to someone without calculation. Anytime. And Victoria, congratulations. On the baby. I know I didn't say it before, but he's lucky to have someone fighting this hard for him already.
Oh, she smiled, and for a moment she looked almost shy. I hope so. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I guess that makes two of us, right? Just figuring it out as we go. Best anyone can do. He watched her walk back toward her office, disappearing into the lunch crowd. Then he headed to his car, his mind spinning. That evening, after Lily was in bed, Ethan's phone rang. David Chen. Good news. The judge granted our motion to dismiss. Westbrook's lawsuit is dead. Ethan felt something unclench in his chest. Seriously? Seriously. The judge called it a transparent attempt to weaponize the legal system against a witness to criminal harassment. He dismissed it with prejudice, which means they can't refile. And he's ordered Hartman and Cross to pay your legal fees. All of them. How much does that come to? About $40,000 so far, which they now owe you. $40,000. Ethan sat down hard on the couch. They're going to pay me for suing me? That's how it works when you file a frivolous lawsuit and lose. It's a warning shot. They tried to intimidate you and it backfired. Badly. What happens now? Now we press our advantage. The criminal investigation into their fraud is moving forward. The DA's office is very interested in what Victoria uncovered, and we're preparing a civil suit for the harassment and intimidation. We have the threatening text, the photograph of Lily, the attempted coercion with the affidavit. We're going to bury them. For the first time in weeks, Ethan let himself feel something like hope. How long until this is over? Months, probably. But the worst is behind you. They played their hand and lost. Now they're in damage control mode. After the call, Ethan poured himself 2 fingers of whiskey, a bottle he'd been saving for something worth celebrating, and sat on the couch in the dark. He thought about Victoria, pregnant and alone, building a life on her own terms. About Lily, asleep in the next room, safe because he'd refused to compromise. About the lawsuit, dismissed, dead, no longer a sword hanging over his head. He thought about Rita's words from that first night. You're a good man. Don't forget that. Maybe she was right. Maybe doing the right thing didn't always cost everything. Maybe sometimes it paid dividends you couldn't predict. His phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. Heard from Chen. Congratulations. Drinks on me when this is all over. You've earned it. He typed back. I don't drink much these days, but I'll take a rain check. Deal. Sleep well, Ethan. We won today. He looked at those 3 words. We won today. Not I won or you won. We, partners, allies. He finished his whiskey and went to bed, and for the first time in weeks, he slept through the night without waking up in a cold sweat, waiting for the other shoe to drop. The next morning, Ethan woke to find a deposit in his checking account. $10,000, the signing bonus. He stared at the number on his phone screen, almost afraid to blink in case it disappeared. He paid every bill on the counter, every single one. Electric, water, internet, credit card. Watched the balances drop to 0 one by one. Then he transferred $2,000 to savings, an emergency fund, something they'd never had before. When Lily came into the kitchen for breakfast, Ethan was scrambling eggs and actually humming. You're happy, she observed. Yeah, I am. How come? Because things are looking up, sunshine. We're going to be okay. She climbed into her chair, studying him with those 2 old eyes. Were we not okay before? He set a plate in front of her. We were surviving before. Now we're going to do better than that. Does this mean we can get a dog? Ethan laughed, surprised at how good it felt. Maybe. Someday. Let's not get crazy. You always say that.
Lily grumbled, but she was smiling. That afternoon, Ethan met with Victoria's construction team at the future restaurant site. The warehouse was gutted down to the brick walls and concrete floor, but he could see the potential. High ceilings, big windows, good bones. They walked through the space, discussing kitchen layout and dining flow and where to put the bar. "What do you think?" Victoria asked. She'd shown up halfway through the meeting, wearing jeans and a sweater instead of her usual suit. Ethan barely recognized her. "I think it's going to be good. Really good. That's the goal. I want this to be more than just a restaurant. I want it to be a place that means something. Good food, fair wages, local partnerships. A business that proves you can be profitable and ethical at the same time. Tall order. I'm aware. But if anyone can pull it off, it's you. You've got the vision, the integrity, and you know what it's like to work a kitchen from the bottom up. You won't forget where you came from." Ethan looked around the empty space, imagining it filled with voices and the smell of good food and the warmth of a dining room that felt like home. "When did you decide all this? The restaurant, the philosophy, all of it?" "Honestly, that night at the diner. I was sitting in that booth terrified, and I looked around and thought, this is real. This is people taking care of each other. No pretense, no performance, just a waitress who works too hard and a cook who stepped up when it mattered. And I wanted to build something that honored that didn't lose sight of what actually matters. Which is? People. Connection. The idea that we're responsible for each other, even when it's hard." She turned to him. "You taught me that, whether you meant to or not." Ethan didn't know what to say to that, so he just nodded and turned back to the space, letting the moment settle. Over the next month, the legal battle against Hartman and Cross intensified. The DA's office brought criminal charges: fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy. 3 of the 4 lawyers who'd harassed Victoria were indicted. Marcus Westbrook, Bradley Fine, and Thomas Chen all faced potential prison time. Only Gerald Hartman escaped prosecution by turning state's evidence against his partners. The firm itself collapsed within weeks. Clients fled. Partners resigned. By the end of October, Hartman and Cross was in bankruptcy, its name a warning about what happened when you confused power with immunity. Victoria's civil suit settled out of court for an undisclosed sum. She donated all of it to a legal aid fund for harassment victims. And through it all, Ethan worked. He finalized the menu, hired sous chefs and line cooks, negotiated with farmers and ranchers and fishmongers. He threw himself into the restaurant the way he'd once thrown himself into combat. Total focus, no hesitation. Lily thrived. Martinez became a fixture outside her school, and eventually the other parents got used to seeing him there. Ethan's checking account stayed in the black. The apartment didn't feel quite so small anymore. In early December, Victoria called Ethan into her office. She was starting to show now, her pregnancy visible in the curve of her belly. She'd gone public with it a month earlier, and the media had predictably lost its mind. Think pieces about single mothers and corporate leadership, speculation about the father, endless commentary on whether she could handle both. She'd ignored all of it with the same steely composure she brought to everything. "I have something to tell you," she said as Ethan sat down. "And I wanted you to hear it from me first. Okay? The criminal trial against Westbrook and the others starts in February. They're expecting it to last 3 weeks. And the prosecution wants you to testify." Ethan had known this was coming, still felt like a punch to the gut. "Testify about what?" "About that night at the diner. What you saw, what they said, what happened. You're their star witness. The person who has no agenda, no financial stake, just a clear view of what actually happened. And if I say no, they can subpoena you, force you to testify. But it's better if you agree voluntarily. Shows the jury you want to be there, that you believe in the case." Ethan thought about standing in a courtroom, facing Marcus Westbrook again, reliving that night in front of strangers. Will you be there? Every day. The trial is about the fraud, but the harassment at the diner is part of the pattern of behavior the prosecution is establishing. So yes, I'll be there. And so will David Chen. What do I have to do? Tell the truth, that's all. Just tell them exactly what you saw. He agreed, because there was no other choice. Because walking away now would mean everything they'd fought for was for nothing. The trial, when it came, was exactly as brutal as he'd feared. 3 weeks of testimony, cross-examination, legal maneuvering. Ethan sat on the stand for 6 hours over 2 days, walking the jury through every detail of that night. Marcus Westbrook's lawyer tried to make him out as a violent hothead, an unstable veteran looking for a fight. David Chen shredded that narrative on redirect, bringing up Ethan's spotless military record, his years of steady employment, his single-minded focus on raising his daughter. Victoria testified for a full day, calm and precise, walking the jury through the fraud, the threats, the harassment. When Westbrook's lawyer tried to suggest she was lying, that her pregnancy was making her emotional, she'd looked him dead in the eye and said, "I'm not emotional, I'm factual. And the facts are that your client stole from my company and tried to silence me with violence. If you want to call that emotional, that says more about you than me." The jury deliberated for 8 hours. When they came back, the verdict was unanimous. Guilty on all counts. Marcus Westbrook got 7 years. Bradley Fine got 5. Thomas Chen got 6. Outside the courthouse, Victoria stood next to Ethan on the steps, facing a wall of reporters and cameras. She made a brief statement thanking the prosecution, the jury, and the man whose courage started all of this. She didn't name Ethan, but everyone knew who she meant. "How do you feel?" a reporter shouted. Victoria looked at Ethan, then back at the cameras. "I feel like justice actually worked for once, and that's rarer than it should be." They walked back to her car together, Martinez clearing a path through the crowd. Once they were inside, doors closed against the chaos, Victoria exhaled shakily. "It's over," she said. "It's actually over." "Yeah, it is." She turned to him, and there were tears in her eyes, the first time he'd seen her cry. "Thank you. For all of it. For stepping in that night. For refusing to back down. For being exactly who you are." "I didn't do anything special." "Yes, you did. You did the right thing when it would have been easier not to, and that changed everything." She wiped her eyes, laughing a little. "Sorry. Hormones. I cry at commercials now." "It's okay. You're allowed." Martinez drove them back to Victoria's office. The whole way, Ethan watched the city roll by. The same streets he'd driven 1,000 times, but somehow different now. Lighter. Like a weight had lifted he hadn't realized he was carrying. At the office, Victoria turned to him before getting out. "The restaurant opens in 2 months. Are you ready?" "As ready as I'll ever be." "Good. Because I'm counting on you." She paused. "And Ethan? When this opens, when we have our first service, I want you to bring Lily. She should see what her father built. She's 8. She'll be bored out of her mind. Then she'll be bored in a place that exists because you refuse to compromise. That matters." He nodded, not trusting himself to speak. Victoria got out of the car, then leaned back in. "Oh, and one more thing. Martinez's contract is up next month, but I'd like to keep him on, maybe expand his duties. Would you be okay with that? Him staying as Lily's security? You don't have to. I know I don't have to. I want to. Consider it a fringe benefit of the job." She was gone before he could argue. Ethan sat in the back of the car, Martinez watching him in the rearview mirror. "She's stubborn," Martinez said. "Yeah, I noticed. But she's good people. Best boss I've ever had. You made the right call, throwing in with her." Ethan thought about that night at the diner, about the choice he'd made in 90 seconds that had led to all of this, the job, the trial, the future taking shape in front of him. "I hope so," he said. "Trust me," Martinez said, pulling back into traffic. "You did." The restaurant opened on a Friday in late February, 2 weeks after the verdicts came down. They called it Ember, Victoria's choice. Something about transformation and warmth rising from ash. Ethan thought it was a little dramatic, but he kept that to himself. The name didn't matter as much as what happened inside. The week leading up to opening night was controlled chaos. Ethan ran the kitchen staff through service after service, drilling timing and plating until everyone moved like parts of the same machine. He'd hired 12 people, sous chefs, line cooks, prep staff, and he'd been careful about who made the cut. People who needed the work, who understood what it meant to show up and execute. No culinary school prima donnas. No one who thought a kitchen was a place to showcase their ego. On Thursday night, the day before opening, Ethan stayed late doing final prep. He was breaking down a case of duck when Victoria appeared in the kitchen doorway. She was 8 months pregnant now, moving slower but still refusing to slow down. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she wore an old sweater that had definitely seen better days. "You're supposed to be home resting," Ethan said, not looking up from his work. "I own the place. I'll rest when I'm dead." She pulled up a stool, lowered herself onto it with a grimace. "How's it looking?" "We're ready. Menu's tight, staff knows their stage, timing's clean. We'll be fine." "That's not what I asked. I asked how it's looking." Ethan set down his knife and actually looked at her. "Honestly, I'm terrified. What if nobody comes? What if the food's not good enough? What if we crash and burn on the first night?" "Then we crash and burn and we get up and try again tomorrow." Victoria rested her hands on her belly. "You know what I've learned in 10 years of business? Failure isn't fatal. It's just information. The only real mistake is not trying. Easy to say when you're a billionaire." "I wasn't always a billionaire. I was once a 22-year-old with a business degree and 40,000 in student loans, pitching a real estate idea to investors who laughed me out of their offices. I failed a dozen times before anything stuck, but I kept going because the alternative was giving up, and giving up wasn't an option." Ethan wiped his hands on his apron. "Why are you really here? At 9 o'clock on a Thursday night when you should be home with your feet up?" Victoria was quiet for a moment. "Because I wanted to see it. The night before we open. When it's still just possibility, before we know whether we succeed or fail. There's something pure about that moment, and I wanted to share it with you." "That's surprisingly sentimental coming from you." "I'm pregnant and emotional. Sue me." She smiled. "But seriously, Ethan, thank you for believing in this, for building something that matters. I couldn't have done it without you. You could have hired someone better, someone with credentials. I hired exactly who I needed. Someone who understands that food is more than just fuel. It's care. It's showing up for people. That's what this place is about, and you get that in your bones." Ethan looked around the kitchen, the gleaming stainless steel, the 6-burner ranges, the walk-in cooler stocked with produce from local farms. 6 months ago, he'd been working a flat top at a diner, scrambling to make rent. Now he was standing in his own kitchen, about to open a restaurant that had his fingerprints all over it. "It still feels like charity sometimes," he admitted. "Like I didn't earn this. You saved my life and my son's. You earned it. I just did what anyone should have done. Except most people don't. That's the point." Victoria stood with effort, one hand on her back. "I should go. Ethan, tomorrow night, when we open, enjoy it. Let yourself feel proud. You've earned that too." She left, and Ethan went back to breaking down the duck. But something had shifted. The fear was still there, but underneath it was something else. Anticipation. Maybe even excitement. Opening night arrived with clear skies and temperatures in the low 60s, perfect weather for the city. Ethan got to the restaurant at noon, even though they didn't open until 6. He prepped, double-checked inventory, ran through the menu in his head until he could recite every dish in his sleep. At 4:30, the staff arrived. Ethan gathered them in the kitchen before service, looking at the faces of people he'd trained, people who trusted him enough to take a chance on a place that didn't exist yet. "This is it," he said. "First service. You all know what to do. Cook with care. Respect the ingredients. Respect each other. And remember, every plate that leaves this kitchen is a promise we're making to someone. We promise them it's worth their time, their money, their trust. Let's keep that promise." One of the line cooks, Maria, a woman in her 40s who'd been working diners and chains for 20 years, raised her hand. "What if we screw up?" "Then we fix it, fast and without drama. Mistakes happen. How we handle them is what matters." At 5:30, the front-of-house staff arrived, servers, bartenders, hosts. Victoria had hired a general manager, a guy named Patrick, who'd run high-end restaurants in New York and knew how to work a dining room. He gave his own pep talk while Ethan focused on the kitchen. At 6 p.m., they unlocked the doors. The first customers were a couple in their 60s, dressed for a nice night out. They ordered cocktails at the bar and studied the menu with the careful attention of people who took dining seriously. Ethan watched from the kitchen pass as their appetizers went out, seared scallops with sweet corn puree and crispy pancetta. Watched them take the first bites, watched their faces. The woman closed her eyes, said something to her husband. He tried his own bite and nodded. Ethan exhaled. First test passed. By 7, The dining room was full. Reservations had sold out within hours of being available, and the walk-in list was long. The kitchen hit its rhythm, orders coming in, tickets hanging, plates going out. Ethan orchestrated it all, calling times, checking temps, tasting sauces. The controlled chaos he'd spent 6 years learning at Sal's Diner and another 6 months perfecting here. At 7:45, Jennifer appeared at the pass. "Mr. Cole? There's someone here to see you." "I'm in the middle of service. Can it wait?" "It's your daughter." Ethan's head snapped up. He'd invited Lily, but he'd assumed she wouldn't actually come. She had school tomorrow, and 8-year-olds weren't exactly known for their patience with fancy restaurants. "Give me 2 minutes. Tell her to wait." He finished plating the duck he was working on, passed it to the expediter, then wiped his hands and headed to the dining room. Lily was standing near the host stand wearing the dress she usually saved for holidays. Rita was with her, looking uncomfortable in a skirt and blouse. "Surprise," Rita said, seeing Ethan's expression. "Hope you don't mind. Lily called me this afternoon, said she wanted to come but needed a ride. I figured, what the hell, might as well see what you've been up to." Lily ran to him, threw her arms around his waist. "Daddy, this place is so fancy!" Ethan hugged her back, acutely aware that he was sweaty and probably smelled like duck fat. "What are you doing here, sunshine? It's a school night." "I wanted to see your restaurant. Rita said it was okay if we didn't stay too late." He looked at Rita over Lily's head. She shrugged. "Kid was insistent, and I figured you could use some friendly faces in the crowd." Patrick appeared, all professional charm. "Mr. Cole, we saved the corner booth for your guests. Best seat in the house." "You don't have to." "It's already done. Come on, I'll show you." They settled Lily and Rita in the booth. Ethan crouched down next to Lily's seat. "I have to get back to the kitchen. But you order anything you want, okay? And if you get bored, you tell Rita and she'll take you home. Deal? Can I get dessert?" "You can get 2 desserts if you want." Her face lit up. "Really?" "Really. It's a special night." He kissed her forehead and headed back to the kitchen, but not before catching Rita's eye. She gave him a nod that said, "I've got her," and he felt some of the tension ease from his shoulders. The rest of service was a blur. Orders kept coming. The kitchen kept executing. Around 9, Victoria came in through the back entrance, moving slowly but determined. She'd changed into a dress that accommodated her belly, and she looked tired but happy. "How's it going?" she asked, staying out of the way near the prep station. "Good. Really good. We're slammed but keeping up." "The reviews are already hitting social media. People love it, Ethan. The food, the atmosphere, all of it." He didn't have time to process that. A ticket came in for 6 entrees, and he turned his attention back to the line. But Victoria's words stayed with him, warming something in his chest. At 10:30, the last orders went out. By 11, the dining room had cleared except for a few lingerers at the bar. Ethan's staff was breaking down their stations, exhausted but riding the high of a successful first service. He found Lily and Rita still in the corner booth. Lily's head was resting on Rita's shoulder, her eyes half closed. 2 empty dessert plates sat on the table. She'd actually gotten both. "How was it?" Ethan asked, sliding into the booth across from them. "Amazing," Rita said. "Seriously, Ethan, that duck? I've never tasted anything like it, and I've been slinging food for 40 years. What about you, Sunshine? Did you like it?" Lily lifted her head, blinking sleepily. "The chocolate thing was the best thing I ever ate. Can we come back tomorrow?" Ethan laughed. "Maybe not tomorrow, but yeah, we can come back." "Are you rich now?" The question caught him off guard. Rita looked equally surprised. "No, baby, I'm not rich." "But you work at a fancy restaurant. Fancy means rich." "Fancy means expensive. That's not the same thing. I make a good living now, better than before. But rich? That's something else." Lily considered this, then yawned hugely. "Okay, I'm tired. Can we go home?" Rita stood, gathering her purse. "I'll get her back safe. You finish up here." "Thank you. For bringing her. For everything." Rita reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "I told you that night, remember? You're a good man. Watching you land on your feet, that's the best tip I've gotten in years." After they left, Ethan helped his staff finish breakdown. By midnight, the kitchen was clean, the walk-ins were restocked, and everyone had gone home. He was doing a final walkthrough when Victoria found him. You're still here, he said. So are you. Couldn't sleep anyway. The baby's doing gymnastics.
She patted her belly. I wanted to ask you something. Do you have plans for tomorrow night? Another service? Why? Before that, I'm having a small gathering at my place, celebrating the opening. Just close friends, people who've been part of this journey. I'd like you to come. Bring Lily if you want. Ethan's first instinct was to say no. Parties at billionaires' houses weren't his scene.
But then he thought about Victoria, 8 months pregnant, throwing a party to celebrate something they'd built together. What time? 6. I'll text you the address. And Ethan? It's casual. No ties, no stress. Just good people and better food. I'm a chef. I'll judge your food. She laughed. Fair enough. I'm having it catered, so judge away. The next evening, Ethan drove to Victoria's house with Lily in the passenger seat. She was chattering about her day at school, something about a math test she thought she'd aced. He was only half listening, too busy being intimidated by the neighborhood they were driving through. Victoria lived in the historic district, where houses had names instead of numbers and driveways had gates. Her place was a sprawling Tudor-style mansion with ivy climbing the brick walls and gardens that probably required a full-time staff to maintain.
Whoa, Lily breathed. She lives here. Apparently. It's like a castle. It's like a tax write-off. Come on. The door was answered by Jennifer, who greeted them warmly. Mr. Cole, Lily, come in. Everyone's in the back garden. The house was exactly what Ethan expected. High ceilings, antique furniture, art that was probably worth more than his car. But it also felt lived in. Books stacked on tables, a pair of sneakers by the door, a coffee mug someone had forgotten on a side table. The back garden was strung with lights and filled with maybe 20 people. Ethan recognized David Chen, Patrick from the restaurant, a few members of the construction team. Others he didn't know, probably Victoria's business associates and friends. Victoria spotted them and waved, making her way over. You made it! Lily, you look beautiful. That's a great dress. Lily beamed. It's my favorite. Mine too. Come on, there's a dessert table that has your name all over it. She led Lily towards a table laden with pastries and cakes, leaving Ethan standing awkwardly alone. David Chen rescued him, appearing with 2 beers. You look terrified, Chen said, handing him one. I'm a line cook at a party with lawyers and CEOs. What do you think? I think you're the head chef of the hottest new restaurant in the city, and you just survived a federal trial. You can handle a garden party. Chen clinked his bottle against Ethan's. Congrats, by the way. Opening night was incredible. My wife hasn't stopped talking about that short rib. They talked for a while about the restaurant, about the trial, about Chen's kids and Ethan's life as a single dad. It was easier than Ethan expected, falling into conversation with someone who felt like an actual friend rather than a business contact. As the evening wore on, people drifted over to introduce themselves. A venture capitalist who wanted to invest in Ember's expansion. A food writer who wanted to do a profile. A woman who ran a nonprofit supporting veteran employment and thought Ethan's story was inspirational. He handled it all with the same awkward grace he brought to everything, deflecting praise and keeping his answers short. But underneath the discomfort was something unexpected, a sense of belonging. These people weren't just Victoria's circle, they were becoming his too. Around 8, Victoria clinked a glass to get everyone's attention. The conversations died down. Thank you all for coming, she said, one hand resting on her belly. I wanted to bring together the people who made Ember possible. Some of you invested money. Some of you invested time and expertise. But all of you believed in something that was just an idea 6 months ago. And now it's real. She looked directly at Ethan. There's one person here who deserves special recognition. Ethan Cole didn't just build the menu or run the kitchen. He showed me what integrity looks like, what it means to do the right thing even when it costs you everything. This restaurant exists because he refused to compromise, and because that refusal taught me something I'd forgotten, that character matters more than calculation. Everyone turned to look at Ethan. He felt his face heat up, wanted to disappear into the hedge behind him. Victoria just smiled. So here's to Ethan, and to all of you. Thank you for being part of this. They raised their glasses. Ethan raised his beer, feeling exposed and grateful in equal measure. After the toast,
People went back to their conversations. Ethan found Lily at the dessert table, her face smeared with chocolate. "Having fun?" he asked. "This is the best party ever. Can we live here?" "No, sunshine, this is Ms. Hale's house. But it has a pool and everything." "Our apartment has heat and running water. That's pretty good too." Victoria appeared beside them. "She's welcome to swim if she wants. I have extra suits in the pool house." Lily's eyes went wide. "Really? Daddy, can I?" Ethan looked at Victoria, who nodded. "There are other kids here. Jennifer's watching them. She's completely safe." "Please, Daddy." "Fine, but only for an hour. Then we have to go." Lily took off running toward the pool before he could change his mind. Victoria watched her go, smiling. "She's a great kid. You've done an amazing job with her." "I've done the best I could. Not sure that qualifies as amazing." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the party unfold around them. The lights were soft, the air was warm, and for the first time in longer than Ethan could remember, he felt something close to contentment. "Can I ask you something personal?" Victoria said. "You can ask." "Do you ever think about dating, meeting someone?" Ethan snorted. "When? Between working 80-hour weeks and raising an 8-year-old? Fair point, but still, you're young. You're not unattractive. Don't you want that? Partnership, companionship, all that?" "I had that once. Didn't last. And now Lily's my priority. Everything else is just noise." "That's very noble. Also very lonely." "Lonely I can handle. Failing her? That keeps me up at night." Victoria was quiet for a moment. "You won't fail her. You couldn't if you tried. But Ethan, don't forget to leave room for yourself too. You can't pour from an empty cup." Is this advice or a lecture? It's a friend telling another friend not to sacrifice so much that there's nothing left. She shifted, wincing. "Also, this baby is sitting on my bladder and I need to pee for the 40th time today. Excuse me." She waddled off toward the house, leaving Ethan alone with his beer and his thoughts. He watched Lily in the pool, splashing with the other kids, her laughter carrying across the garden. David Chen appeared at his elbow again. "She's not wrong, you know, about the empty cup thing." "You been eavesdropping?" "Hard not to when you're standing 3 feet away. But seriously, when's the last time you did something just for you? Not for Lily, not for work. Just you." Ethan thought about it, came up blank. "I read sometimes. At night, after Lily's asleep." "That doesn't count. I mean something that feeds your soul. A hobby, a passion, something that reminds you you're more than just a dad and a chef." "I like being a dad and a chef." "I'm sure you do, but you're also a human being who deserves to have a life beyond obligation." Chen clapped him on the shoulder. "Think about it. That's all I'm saying." Later, driving home with a sleepy Lily in the passenger seat, Ethan thought about Chen's words, about Victoria's concern, about the life he'd built that was functional but not exactly joyful. "Daddy?" Lily's voice was drowsy. "Are you happy?" The question surprised him. "What makes you ask that? You always look worried, like you're thinking about problems." "I'm fine, sunshine. Just tired." "Ms. Hale said you're a hero. Are you?" Ethan glanced at her. "I'm not a hero. I'm just your dad." "But you saved her. She said so." "I helped her when she needed help. That's different." "I think you're a hero." She yawned. "Even if you don't." By the time they got home, Lily was fully asleep. Ethan carried her up to the apartment, tucked her into bed still in her dress because he didn't want to wake her. He stood in her doorway for a long moment, watching her breathe, feeling the weight of her words. "Are you happy?" He didn't know how to answer that. He was stable, employed, no longer drowning in bills or fear. But happy? That felt like something other people got to experience. People whose lives weren't held together by duct tape and determination. His phone buzzed, a text from Victoria. "Thank you for coming tonight. And for everything. You've given me more than a restaurant. You've given me hope that good people still exist." He stared at the message for a long time before typing back. "You gave me a future. That's more than hope. That's everything." Her response came a minute later. "Then I'd say we're even. Sleep well, Ethan. Tomorrow's another service." He smiled despite himself. Tomorrow was another service. And the day after that, and the day after that. A routine, a rhythm, a life that made sense. Maybe that was enough. Maybe happiness was just this, knowing your kid was safe, your work mattered, and someone out there believed you were worth believing in. He went to bed thinking about Victoria's party, about Lily in the pool, about the restaurant that was his now in a way nothing else had ever been. And somewhere between awake and asleep, he let himself acknowledge the truth David Chen had been pushing at. He was tired of being alone, tired of carrying everything by himself, tired of the empty apartment after Lily went to bed, the silence that felt less like peace and more like absence. But wanting something and knowing how to get it were different things entirely. So he pushed the thought away, let sleep take him, and promised himself he'd think about it later. Later always felt safer than now. The restaurant's second week was even busier than the first. Word of mouth spread. Reviews hit the papers, and suddenly Ember was the place everyone wanted to try. Reservations were booked solid for the next 2 months. The kitchen ran like a machine, Ethan's staff executing with precision born of repetition. On Tuesday of the third week, Victoria came in during afternoon prep. She moved slower now, the pregnancy clearly taking its toll. Her due date was 3 weeks away, but she looked ready to go any day. "We need to talk about your contract," she said, settling onto a stool near the prep station. Ethan looked up from the carrots he was dicing. "What about it?" "It expires in 4 months. I want to extend it. 5 years, significant raise, equity stake in the restaurant. You've earned it." "Equity?" "Victoria, I can't." "Yes, you can. This place works because of you, the menu, the culture, the execution. I want you invested not just as an employee, but as a partner. 20% ownership, full decision-making authority on kitchen operations." Ethan set down his knife. 20% of a restaurant that was already profitable and getting more popular by the day. That was real money, security beyond anything he'd imagined. "Why?" "Because you've proven yourself, because I trust you, and because—" She paused, her hand going to her belly. "Because I'm about to have a baby, and I need to know this place is in good hands. I can't run everything myself anymore. I need partners I can rely on." "I don't know anything about running a business. You know about running a kitchen, which is the hardest part. The rest we can figure out together. Patrick handles front of house, you handle back of house, I handle the business side. It's a triangle, balanced." Ethan thought about the apartment, the bills that were paid now but could easily stack up again, about Lily, getting older, needing more, about the future that still felt fragile despite everything. 5 years is a long time, he said. "It is. But you're not going anywhere, are you?" He met her eyes, saw the challenge there, the belief. "No, I'm not." "Then say yes. Let's make this official." "Okay, yes." Victoria smiled, relieved. "Good. I'll have the lawyers draw up the papers. Should be ready by next week." She stood, winced, put a hand to her back. "You all right?" Ethan asked. "Fine. Just—" She gasped, her hand moving to her belly. Water pooled on the floor beneath her. "Oh, that's not fine." Ethan's eyes went wide. Are you? My water just broke 3 weeks early. I need to get to the hospital now." He was already moving, grabbing his phone, yelling for someone to call 911. Maria took over the prep station without being asked. Patrick appeared from the dining room. "What's happening?" "Baby's coming. I'm taking her to the hospital." "You don't have to—" Victoria started. "Yes, I do. Come on." He got her to his car, an old Honda that had seen better days but still ran, and drove through midday traffic like a man possessed. Victoria breathed through contractions, gripping the door handle. "This wasn't the plan," she said between breaths. "I had a birth plan. Scheduled C-section, not supposed to happen like this." "Plans change. You'll be fine." "Easy for you to say. You're not about to push a human out of your body." At the hospital, Ethan got her checked in while nurses descended with wheelchairs and monitors. They whisked her away, and he was left standing in the waiting room, his heart pounding. He called Jennifer, who said she'd be there in 20 minutes. Then he sat down and waited, because that's all he could do. 2 hours later, Jennifer arrived with an overnight bag and a worried expression. "How is she?" "I don't know. They won't tell me anything. I'm not family." "You're close enough."
She marched to the nurse's station, said something in a low voice, and came back with a visitor's badge. She asked for you, room 412. Ethan took the elevator up, found the room, knocked softly. Victoria's voice called out, strained but strong. Come in. She was in bed, hooked up to monitors, her hair plastered to her forehead with sweat, but she was smiling. 8 pounds, 6 ounces. They just took him for tests, but he's perfect. Healthy. All fingers and toes. Relief flooded Ethan's chest. That's great. I'm happy for you. I couldn't have done this without you. Any of it. The restaurant, the trial, getting here. You've been... Her voice cracked. You've been the friend I didn't know I needed. Ethan sat in the chair beside her bed. You gave me a life. Least I could do was return the favor. They sat in comfortable silence until a nurse brought the baby back, a tiny bundle wrapped in blue. Victoria took him with shaking hands, her face transforming with a love so fierce it was almost painful to witness. Do you want to hold him? She asked. Ethan shook his head. I should go. Let you rest. Ethan, please. He took the baby carefully, the weight familiar and foreign all at once. The last time he'd held someone this small, it had been Lily, and his wife had been dying in the next room. This time was different, happier, hopeful. The baby opened his eyes, dark blue, unfocused, and made a soft sound. He likes you, Victoria said. He's barely conscious. He doesn't like anything yet. Still, I think it's a good sign. She yawned. I'm going to name him Benjamin, after my grandfather, Benjamin Cole Hale. Ethan's head snapped up. You... what? I wanted to honor the man who saved his life, if that's okay with you. Victoria, you can't. I can, and I did. His middle name is Cole. Deal with it. Ethan looked down at the baby in his arms. Benjamin Cole Hale, a kid who'd almost died before he was born, saved by 90 seconds of violence in a roadside diner. He's going to have a hell of a story to tell someday, Ethan said quietly. He's going to have a hell of a life. I'll make sure of that. And looking at Victoria's face, exhausted, determined, full of love, Ethan believed her. He left the hospital as the sun was setting, the city bathed in orange light that made everything look softer than it was. Ethan drove back to the restaurant on autopilot, his mind still on the weight of Benjamin in his arms, the way Victoria had looked at her son like he was the answer to every question she'd ever asked. The kitchen was in full swing when he arrived. Maria had stepped up, running the line with the same precision Ethan would have. He watched through the pass for a moment, feeling something settle in his chest. He'd built this. Not just the menu or the systems, but the culture. A team that could function without him standing over their shoulders. Patrick found him by the bar. How is she? Good. Baby's healthy. Both doing fine. That's a relief? You heading back out? No, I'm here. Might as well finish the shift. He worked until close, lost in the rhythm of the kitchen. It was easier than thinking, safer than feeling. By the time the last order went out and the staff had cleaned down, it was past midnight. Ethan drove home exhausted, his body running on fumes. Lily was asleep at their neighbor's apartment. Mrs. Chen, a widow in her 70s who'd been watching Lily on late nights since Ethan started at Ember. He collected her quietly, carried her back to their apartment, tucked her into bed still in her school clothes. In the kitchen, he poured himself 2 fingers of whiskey and sat in the dark, thinking about the year that had passed. 12 months ago, he'd been fired from a diner, broke and desperate, wondering how he'd keep the lights on. Now he was part owner of a successful restaurant. His daughter was safe, and he'd helped put corrupt lawyers in prison. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like standing on a cliff edge, waiting for the ground to give way. His phone buzzed. A text from Victoria, sent at 1 a.m. Can't sleep, baby's eating every 2 hours. This is harder than running a company. Send help or coffee, preferably both. Ethan smiled despite himself and typed back, You'll survive. You're tougher than you think. Easy for you to say. You've done this before. I'm terrified I'm going to break him. You won't. And if you need anything, call me. Doesn't matter what time. Thank you, Ethan, for today, for everything. I mean it.
He set the phone down and finished his whiskey, then went to bed. But sleep didn't come easy. His mind kept circling back to Victoria's words at the hospital. "You've been the friend I didn't know I needed." He'd been so focused on survival for so long that he'd forgotten what friendship felt like. Real friendship, the kind built on shared struggle instead of convenience. The next morning, Ethan woke to Lily jumping on his bed. "Daddy, you forgot to wake me up. I'm going to be late." He bolted upright, checking the clock. 7:45. School started at 8:15. Why didn't my alarm go off? I don't know, but we gotta go. They made it to school with 3 minutes to spare, Lily running across the playground with her backpack bouncing. Martinez waved from his usual spot across the street, and Ethan waved back. The routine was so ingrained now that it felt permanent, like it had always been this way. At the restaurant, Ethan spent the morning working on new menu items. Spring was coming, and he wanted to incorporate seasonal ingredients, ramps, morels, fresh peas. He was testing a dish with pan-seared halibut when Jennifer called. "Mr. Cole, Miss Hale would like to see you. She's back home now with the baby, and she asked if you could stop by this afternoon." "Is something wrong?" "No, she just wants to discuss something. She said it's important." Ethan arrived at Victoria's house at 3, carrying a bag of groceries. Ingredients for a soup his mother used to make when he was sick. New mothers needed to eat, and hospital food was garbage. Victoria answered the door herself, wearing sweatpants and an old t-shirt, her hair in a messy bun. She looked exhausted and radiant at the same time. "You didn't have to bring food," she said, but she was already reaching for the bag. "You need to eat something besides takeout and hospital meals." "Where's the baby?" "Sleeping, finally. I have maybe 20 minutes before he wakes up screaming again." She led him to the kitchen, a massive space with marble counters and professional-grade appliances. "Make yourself at home. I'm going to sit before my legs give out." Ethan unpacked the groceries and started cooking while Victoria watched from a bar stool. They talked about the restaurant. Reservations were still solid. Reviews were glowing. Patrick was handling front of house beautifully. Then Victoria shifted the conversation. "I've been thinking about something," she said. "The restaurant is doing well, better than I projected, and I want to expand the concept, not just more locations. I'm thinking about creating something bigger, a foundation." Ethan looked up from the pot he was stirring. "What kind of foundation?" "One that supports veterans transitioning to civilian life. Job training, placement services, mental health resources. I've been researching the statistics, and they're bleak. 22 veterans die by suicide every day. Unemployment rates are higher than the national average, and the support systems in place aren't enough." That's ambitious. "I know, but I keep thinking about you. About how hard it was for you after you got out. How you struggled to find work that paid enough and gave you dignity. And I think, what if we could change that? What if we could create pathways for veterans to build real careers, not just dead-end jobs?" Ethan set down his spoon. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I want you to be part of it. Co-founder. You'd help design the programs, identify the needs, be the face of it. Your story matters, Ethan. You're proof that with the right support, veterans can thrive. I want to scale that. I'm not a spokesperson. I'm a chef. You're a veteran who rebuilt his life against impossible odds. That's worth more than any credentials." She leaned forward. "I'm not asking you to quit the restaurant. I'm asking you to help me build something that could change thousands of lives. Maybe tens of thousands." Ethan thought about the guys he'd served with. The ones who'd come home broken, who'd struggled to find their footing, who'd disappeared into addiction or homelessness or worse. He thought about the VA hospital waiting rooms, the endless bureaucracy, the way the system chewed people up and spit them out. What would it actually look like? He asked. Culinary training programs, for starters. We could partner with restaurants, create apprenticeships, but also IT training, trade skills, business education, whatever gets people employed and stable, and mental health support throughout. Therapy, peer counseling, crisis intervention. That's going to cost a fortune. I have a fortune, and I'm willing to spend it on something that matters. She paused. My son's middle name is Cole because you saved his life. Let me honor that by helping save others. Please. Ethan ladled soup into a bowl, set it in front of her. Let me think about it. This is It's a lot. I know. Take your time. But Ethan, I really think we could do something important here, something that lasts. He stayed for another hour, helping with the baby when Benjamin woke up crying. Victoria tried to nurse, fumbling through it with the uncertainty of a first-time mother. Ethan found himself giving advice. Support the head like this. Try different positions. It gets easier, drawing on memories from Lily's first weeks. You're good at this, Victoria said, finally getting Benjamin to latch. Had practice. Doesn't mean I knew what I was doing, just meant I couldn't afford to quit. That's parenthood in a nutshell, isn't it? Stumbling forward because stopping isn't an option. Driving home, Ethan thought about Victoria's proposal, a foundation for veterans. It was the kind of big, idealistic thing he'd learned not to trust. Big promises usually meant big disappointments. But Victoria had delivered on every promise she'd made so far. The job, the legal support, the partnership. Maybe this was different. Maybe this was real. That weekend, Ethan took Lily to the park. Spring was definitely arriving. Trees budding, flowers pushing through the dirt, the air warm enough that jackets were optional. They walked along the trail, Lily chattering about her friend Emma's upcoming birthday party. Can I go, please? It's at the roller rink and everyone's going. When is it? Next Saturday. Emma's mom said she'd pick me up if you're working. Ethan thought about his schedule. Saturday was their busiest night. Yeah, you can go. I'll give you money for admission and skate rental. Thank you. She threw her arms around his waist, nearly knocking him over. They found a bench overlooking the pond and sat watching ducks paddle in lazy circles. Lily swung her legs, content with the silence. Ethan studied her profile. She was growing up fast, losing the baby roundness in her face, looking more like her mother every day. Can I ask you something, sunshine? Sure. Are you happy? Like, really happy? Lily thought about it seriously. Yeah, I wish we had more money sometimes, and I still want a dog. But yeah, I'm happy. Are you? The question again. Ethan looked out at the pond, at the ducks, and the sunshine and the families scattered across the park. I'm getting there. I think I'm finally getting there. Good. You deserve to be happy, Daddy. You work really hard. He pulled her close, kissed the top of her head. So do you, kid. So do you. Monday morning, Ethan called Victoria. I'm in, for the foundation. Let's do it. He could hear her smile through the phone. Really? You're sure? I'm sure. But I have conditions. Name them. We do this right. No cutting corners, no half measures. If we're going to help people, we actually help them. Real support, not just checking boxes. Agreed. What else? Lily comes first, always. If this interferes with being her dad, I walk. Of course, that's non-negotiable. And I want Rita involved. She's been in the service industry for 40 years. She knows what it's like to struggle. She should have a voice in this. Done. Anyone else? Ethan thought about Martinez, about David Chen, about the kitchen staff at Ember who'd stepped up when he needed them. Yeah, I'll make a list. They spent the next 3 months building the foundation from the ground up. Victoria handled the legal and financial infrastructure, while Ethan focused on program design. They recruited advisors, veterans, mental health professionals, employment specialists. Rita came on as a consultant, bringing her no-nonsense perspective to every meeting. The foundation launched in June with a small pilot program. 20 veterans enrolled in a 12-week culinary training course. Ethan taught some of the classes himself, sharing kitchen techniques and industry knowledge. But more than that, he shared his story. The struggles, the failures, the moments when he'd almost given up. One of the participants was a guy named Marcus, not the lawyer, a different Marcus, who'd served 3 tours in Afghanistan and come home with PTSD so severe he couldn't hold a job for more than a few weeks. He was quiet in class, kept to himself, his hands shaking whenever he had to use a knife. Ethan pulled him aside after the second week. You doing okay? Yeah, fine. You don't look fine. You look like you're about to bolt. Marcus's jaw tightened. This is stupid. I can't do this. I can barely function most days, and you want me to work in a high-pressure kitchen? It's a joke. It's not a joke. It's hard. But hard doesn't mean impossible. Easy for you to say. You got your shit together. Ethan laughed, sharp and bitter. You think I have my shit together? I have panic attacks in my car before work. I wake up at 3 a.m. convinced I'm going to lose everything. I haven't been on a date in 8 years because the idea of letting someone that close terrifies me. I'm held together with duct tape and denial, same as you. Marcus stared at him. Then how do you keep going? Because I have a kid who needs me, because quitting isn't an option, and because some days just showing up is enough. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be present. Marcus stayed in the program, graduated top of his class, got hired at a restaurant downtown, and sent Ethan a text 6 months later. 1 year sober, still showing up, thanks for not letting me quit. Ethan kept that text, printed it out, and pinned it to the bulletin board in his office at Ember, right next to Lily's latest report card and a photo from opening night. The foundation grew. By the end of the first year, they'd trained 80 veterans and placed 62 in jobs. By the end of the second year, those numbers had tripled. They expanded into other cities, other industries, other services. The mental health component became a cornerstone. Peer support groups, therapy subsidies, crisis hotlines. Victoria threw herself into the work with the same intensity she brought to everything, juggling board meetings and fundraisers while also being a single mother to a toddler who inherited her stubbornness and then some. Ethan watched her navigate it all with a mix of admiration and exhaustion. "How do you do it?" he asked one afternoon. They were in the foundation office, reviewing quarterly reports while Benjamin played with blocks in the corner. "Do what?" "All of it. The business, the foundation, being a mom. You make it look easy." Victoria laughed. "It's not easy. It's barely controlled chaos most days. But I have help. I have Jennifer. I have childcare. I have resources. Most people don't. That's why this matters." Benjamin toddled over, holding up a block. "Mama, look. I see it, baby. That's a beautiful tower." He beamed, then went back to building. Victoria watched him with that fierce love Ethan recognized from the hospital. "He's lucky," Ethan said, "to have you. I'm the lucky one. He gave me a reason to be better, to do more than just accumulate wealth. That night at the diner, when I thought I might lose him, everything changed. My priorities, my purpose, all of it. You would have figured it out eventually. Maybe. But you accelerated the timeline, and for that, I'll always be grateful." Ember continued to thrive. They opened a second location, then a third. Ethan trained new head chefs, built new teams, refined the concept. The work was demanding, but satisfying in a way the diner never had been. He was creating something that would outlast him. Lily grew into a confident 10-year-old, then 11, then 12. She made friends easily, excelled in school, and developed a wicked sense of humor that kept Ethan on his toes. She still asked about getting a dog every few months. Ethan still said maybe someday. On a Thursday in October, 3 years after Benjamin was born, Ethan was closing down the kitchen when Victoria appeared. Benjamin was with her, now a chatty 3-year-old who thought Ethan was the coolest person alive. "Ethan, you got cookies?" "Might have some in the back. Go ask Maria." Benjamin took off running. Victoria settled onto a stool, looking tired but content. "I have a proposition for you," she said. "Another one? I'm running out of hours in the day. This one's personal, not professional." She hesitated, which was unusual for Victoria. "Benjamin's birthday is next month. I'm throwing a party at the house, and I'd like you and Lily to come. Not as employees or colleagues, as family." The word hung between them. Family. "Victoria, I know it's presumptuous, but over the last 3 years, you've become one of the most important people in my life. You and Lily, both. Benjamin asks about you constantly, and I want to acknowledge that, officially." Ethan thought about the journey that had brought them here, from a diner booth to a hospital room to foundation board meetings, from strangers to allies to something deeper. "We'll be there," he said. The party was everything Benjamin could have wanted: balloons, cake, a bounce house in the garden. Lily helped organize games while Ethan manned the grill. Victoria moved through her guests with Benjamin on her hip, introducing him to everyone as "my son," who has the best middle name in the world. Later, after most people had left and the kids were running wild in the backyard, Ethan and Victoria stood together watching the chaos. "Thank you," she said, "for being here, for being you." "I should be thanking you for everything you've done for us." We did it for each other. That's the whole point. She turned to face him. Can I tell you something I've never told anyone? Yeah. That night at the diner, before you stepped in, I was ready to give up. Not just on the fight with the lawyers, but on everything. I was so tired of being alone, of fighting every battle by myself. And then you appeared. This stranger who had no reason to help me, who risked everything for someone he didn't know. And I thought, maybe the world isn't as broken as I believed.
Maybe there are still good people who do good things. I'm not that good. You just stepped up when it mattered.
That's the definition of good, Ethan. Not perfection, not grand gestures, just showing up and doing what's right even when it costs you. Ethan watched Lily and Benjamin playing together, her patient and gentle with him the way she was with all little kids. I think we saved each other. You gave me a future when I thought I'd run out of options. That's worth more than you know. Then we're even. Finally. They stood in comfortable silence as the sun set, painting the garden in gold light. Across the yard, Martinez was teaching a group of kids how to throw a football. Rita was deep in conversation with David Chen about something that had them both laughing. Jennifer was organizing the cleanup with military precision. It was a family. Not the traditional kind, not bound by blood, but a family nonetheless, built on shared struggle and mutual respect and the simple fact of showing up for each other when it mattered. 6 months later, the foundation hit a major milestone. 1,000 veterans placed in stable employment. They threw a celebration at Ember, filling the restaurant with success stories and grateful families. Ethan gave a speech that he barely remembered afterward, too overwhelmed by the faces staring back at him. People whose lives had changed because he'd agreed to try something bigger than himself. Marcus stood in the back, now a sous chef at a Michelin-starred restaurant, clean and sober and building a life. He caught Ethan's eye and nodded once. Ethan nodded back. After the celebration, after everyone had gone home and the staff had cleaned up, Ethan sat alone in the dining room with a glass of whiskey. He thought about the last 4 years, about the path from desperation to purpose. His phone buzzed, a text from Lily, who was at a sleepover. Dad, Emma's mom has puppies. Can we please get one? I'll take care of it, I promise. Ethan smiled and typed back, We'll talk about it. Is that a yes? It's a maybe, which is better than a no. I'll take it. Love you, Dad. Love you too, sunshine. He finished his whiskey and locked up the restaurant, stepping out into the cool spring night. The city hummed around him, cars passing, people laughing somewhere down the block, the distant wail of a siren, the same sounds that had been there 4 years ago when he'd been fired from a diner and thought his world was ending. But nothing was the same. Not really. He had a daughter who felt safe enough to ask for a puppy. He had a career that mattered. He had friends who felt like family. He had a purpose that extended beyond survival. And maybe, just maybe, he had figured out what happiness actually looked like. Not the Hollywood version, no dramatic revelations or perfect endings. Just the quiet satisfaction of knowing you'd done right by the people who counted on you, that you'd stepped up when it mattered and refused to compromise on the things that defined you. His phone rang. Victoria. Did I wake you? No, just leaving the restaurant. What's up? I was thinking about expanding the foundation, adding a housing component, transitional housing for veterans who are homeless or unstably housed. I know it's ambitious, but when has that stopped you? She laughed. Fair point. Will you help me plan it? Yeah, I'm in. Thank you, Ethan, for everything. I mean it. Stop thanking me. We're partners. This is what partners do. Right. Partners. A pause. Get some sleep. We have a board meeting in the morning. Don't remind me. He drove home through streets he knew by heart now, past the diner where it had all started. Sal's had closed last year, the space now a mattress store, and up to the apartment building that still wasn't fancy but didn't feel quite so suffocating anymore. Inside, he stood in Lily's doorway for a moment, looking at the empty bed. She was growing up, becoming independent, needing him less. It should have scared him. Instead, it felt like proof that he'd done something right. In the kitchen, he pulled out his laptop and started researching dog breeds, just in case maybe turned into yes. Because that was the thing about the last 4 years. He'd learned that sometimes the right thing didn't cost everything. Sometimes it paid dividends you couldn't predict. Sometimes stepping into chaos led to clarity instead of catastrophe. And sometimes the person you saved ended up saving you right back. Ethan thought about that night at the diner. 90 seconds that had changed everything. If he'd stayed behind the grill, if he'd looked away, if he'd chosen safety over action, none of this would exist. The restaurant, the foundation, the family he'd built from nothing. But he hadn't looked away. He'd stepped up. And in doing so, he'd learned something his father had tried to teach him years ago, something he'd forgotten in the struggle to survive. Character isn't what you do when people are watching. It's what you do when no one would blame you for walking away. That night, in a roadside diner during a rainstorm, Ethan had made a choice. Not because it was smart or strategic or guaranteed to work out, but because someone needed help and he was there to give it. Everything else, the job, the partnership, the purpose, had flowed from that single moment of refusing to compromise. He closed his laptop and went to bed, thinking about tomorrow's board meeting and next week's menu changes and the conversation he'd need to have with Lily about responsible pet ownership. Normal problems, good problems, the kind you got to have when you weren't just surviving anymore. Outside, the city kept humming. Inside, Ethan finally slept the sleep of someone who'd figured out that doing the right thing didn't always cost everything. Sometimes it gave you back more than you'd ever imagined possible. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.